o'clock on the dot here, March 10th, 2020, for the special meeting for Strawberry Fields and the lower level of the Dayton Town Hall. If we could please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, so there is, first on the agenda is, okay, yeah, they're also, they're right here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mara, is this yours, I'm sorry?
Both different.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Thank you.
First thing on the agenda is any updates from the chair. I have nothing new going for tonight or about anything else going forward. So we can get right into the business for 319 Strawberry Fields public hearing. Greg, if you could first give us an update on the work session that took place, I believe it was the February 25th, 2020?
Yes, yeah, I met with Bishop upstairs at the Selectman's office, and it was with Mr. Ferry as well. And we discussed a few things in regards to going over the sidewalks. Mary Jo Perry from this District 5 was gonna be notified. I think you said you were gonna reach out to her as well as we were gonna try to reach out. Through listening to Mr. Ferry, we're understanding that in the next 5 years, we're not sure exactly what time frame that the Mass DOT is planning on putting a sidewalk coming all the way through. So we're just trying to find out if that's an actual happening thing or something that's just being on paper. We talked about that. We talked about the growth on the abutters. Made sure he showed me on the drawing where they moved the road so that the angle and all that stuff for the side setbacks was not going to be interrupted. Anything that we were going to put on this property for the angle wouldn't have any kind of concerns of being on an abutters piece of property that had to be maintained. Then the water department we talked with him, he was there as well. We went over a few things and they're trying to come up with a plan to upgrade the plant. They were going through how they have only so many service connections in the district. Mr. Bishop was listening to what they were stating about that. It was like anywhere between to do the upgrade for the system for the next 2-year upgrade plans, anywhere between 10 million, 15 million. To bring the upgrade of a plant that they would need to do in order to carry, possibly, once they're not sure this is exactly what it is, but if the concern is that we don't have the water pressure or the water volume, how much the town would have to increase the value of for a new plant. Bishop stated at that moment in time that, you know, this again, I said I couldn't speak for the board, but I had spoken and said at that moment in time that, you know, he said, look, even if I had to wait 1.5 years to 2 years to do the first permit, allows the town to come up with a plan, help us get a little more figuring out where we stand with the water. Also offered that there's a piece of property on the same property that sits out in the back that's not gonna be touched by the development. And if the water department wanted to look into it, possibly giving the water department a piece of property to go ahead and see if it's usable, feasible for the water department to go ahead and use it for a new treatment plant or whatever we might need out there. Let's see. We'll provide uses for the water about 320 units. So this whole week, after going talking with Bishop and figuring out how long it was going to take to build the development, something in the area of anywhere between 7 to 10 years before completion of the development. The sewer department usages, we were going over that. He had stated he was going to send in some calculations from prior ones. He did. He talked to the sewer department, had some concerns. Obviously, there's something to read into that later on.
Okay.
He said he would phase the project slower, so it ended up being, like I mentioned, 7 years.
Okay.
We talked about a community well, 3-year to 5-year. That would be just strictly for, we were thinking at this point, every 3 pieces of property for irrigation. So any of the irrigation that was gonna be in throughout the development wouldn't be tacked into the Dayton Water Department. It would strictly be on site premises
Okay.
between every 3 to 5 houses. Again, these are just things we were discussing,
Yeah.
nothing set in stone.
No, I know.
Again, like I mentioned, he said no irrigation would be going in there. He's going to be installing water-saving toilets for the water and sewer department, which he sent in some calculations showing the difference of how much sewer versus how much the calculations that we're coming up with versus what he actually showing on different, calculations. The sewer is based on 110 gallons per household. You're stating you could do a little better than that or within them roams. Then we talked about the design of the road, but it's upkeep in the homeowner's road. So on the road, there was a few questions, concerns. Mr. Ferry was there and we were talking about it. The only thing that's gonna be different on this particular road is the width of the road, by 2 feet. The infrastructure below the road and everything else like that is still gonna meet the town standards. So we were talking about if it ever wanted to be turned over to the town. They're gonna have an HOA association with the development, that if the town's not willing to accept the road, but however was willing to plow the road, the HOA might be, I'm not saying this is what we're
Right.
saying what he was discussed.
Yep.
That if we would accept the road, that they would go ahead and the HOA would be responsible for all utilities under the road and maintaining the road. Again, it takes the burden off the town. And then we talked about the public lighting. I see that we got something from the Dayton Light and Pot Division, so we can talk about that today. We were just trying to talk about where we're gonna locate them, type of lighting, low lighting, dark lighting type, sewer treatment on site. Until we come up with a tentative plan, see where the water levels and all that stuff, but then we need to design that. We talked about trying to make it at least 1/3 greater than the actual volume of what's there now because of other situations we've had in town. They're not being able to keep up. He's not opposed to it. He just said, we'll see what the calculations were gonna be, we'll go from there. Stormwater. Mr. Bishop reached out to, Stormwater and was told that, had to contact the town hall and then they would set up a meeting with him with the entire Stormwater department. He's willing to work with the Stormwater. Obviously, he has to meet all the regulations regardless, but he just wants to make sure that's, we gotta make sure that that's being taken care of for him. Let's see. We talked about if we weren't gonna do a sidewalk, about possibly putting some money aside, or talk about putting a playground on the site. Something that he's not about either way, just wants to feel us out. We're just trying to find out that, and that's pretty much what we discussed on that meeting, on that date.
Question about the sidewalks. Obviously, the state's been talking about this for years,
Sure.
so the same 3 to 5 years we have it. Are they talking about taking it all the way down 138?
Well, we do have Mr. Ferry in the audience, well, he was. He might be
He's
able
in the back, I see.
He might be able to answer that a little better.
Right.
By understanding, then again, he might not have the answers either, I'm not sure.
Because if we're talking about a crosswalk, where would this crosswalk go?
For getting over to this, department over here.
Over to this side?
Yeah, that's something that we could discuss with Tom, but also, Mary Jo Perry.
Right, who's from District 5?
District 5.
Right, we've met her before.
Yes, and, I have yet not to speak to her yet, but I haven't reached out to her. Maybe Bishop has talked to her yet. Maybe we can have him give us some input where he found out at that point. But at the same note, that's what we discussed, but yes, that's something that I heard between 3 to 5 years, but I do remember this coming up on the last development that came through here.
Stonegate.
And it still
It's
wasn't,
been
yeah, it's been
longer
a
than
while.
5 years.
Yes, so,
I'm looking at the minutes from the meeting too, and I know, I see the calculation of how many kids per home, and is that based on residents who, children who live there permanently? Because what about, people, if there's, more elderly who own one of the cottages or a townhouse and they have grandkids that visit? What if it's, an elderly couple of grandkids and they have 5 grandkids that visit for the weekend? Not all the time or anything, but, that's 5 more kids that now would need to go there. Like, is that number you have based on just on average what you,
No, these are the people who reside there.
who reside there? Okay.
And we talked about a playground, which seems to go every which way.
Yeah.
But it seems like the most success we've had is what you have at Stony Ridge, which is not a playground, it's just an open common area with the crosswalks. And I wonder if that's the solution. The playground, you told us before, get locked up in the past, or they don't get used at all, and it becomes a cost-saving measure for the homeowners. But if it's just something that's open, it might relieve some of the
A
pressure
literal
of
open
the
space,
kids crossing over 138, or even adults crossing over 138. Obviously, they're going to for the Cow Chip Festival and the
Oh, yeah.
4th of July,
Can't avoid
but
that, right,
that's a traffic nightmare no matter where you live.
Right.
Were you opposed to doing something like that with the
Not
open
opposed.
area? I think that came out nice.
Yeah,
Um,
that's not a problem.
But I remember when you were designing that,
Yeah,
putting benches in and,
correct. Now, you're right in saying that this is the most successful idea, but in my opinion, even that was not too greatly successful.
Yeah,
Okay.
right, okay.
Because, you know, again, it was I mean, and Jonathan can speak to that. You know, sometimes, some kids will go just hang out there and
Yeah.
just be unruly and break
right,
the benches and all that.
I think
Yeah.
part of the issue with that was that you know, on one level, the concept seemed nice as a person living over there, but at the same time, it raised other issues of trash, issues of kids congregating, issues of kids breaking things. For the homeowners surrounding that area, who were abutting it, it became a little bit of an issue with kids hanging out after dark, things like that.
Exactly.
So it's not that the kids don't
Right.
use it, but it puts burden on the families nearby and parents to make sure it's policed.
So I think what we had that discussion, and given how many actual kids are gonna be there, it might be more in the public interest if we agree on a number, that whatever it was, it's gonna cost me to do that open space, to contribute to the park and recreation.
okay. I saw that in the notes, the playground
I'm open
commission.
either way.
Right.
You know,
We found the sidewalks were gonna cost $200,000, so I told $195,000. That's what he did right there, so.
I'm glad you got all that.
That's coming around.
The other thing I was concerned about is water is gonna be a usage concern for forever. Until there's more of it. But one well to accommodate 30 homes, you're gonna put all that plumbing
For
in?
irrigation?
For irrigation?
No,
Every 3 homes.
okay.
Oh, 3 homes.
Every 3 or 5 homes for irrigation.
Well, even that,
Oh, it
that's,
says for every 30
this
house.
whole area, just so I can, this whole area, this is common space, this is all gonna be serviced by one shallow well. And the reason why is, we found that artesian wells yield, depending on the area, 5, 6, maybe 10 gallons per minute. Shallow wells, because it's all around, surrounded by wetlands, if you go down like 25, 30 feet, before you hit the bedrock, we've been pumping 50 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be sufficient for here and here. Here, we're simply gonna say, it's not allowed.
Right.
If you want to, you, Mr. Homeowner, we'll be glad to dig a well for you,
Yeah.
a shallow well, which we offer that in our options. We'll be glad to do that and plumb it, but we will make sure that the plumbing doesn't allow for town water
Right.
to be hooked up to.
Yeah. Yeah, just in the notes, it said 30 houses, for every 30, there's gonna be a well, which I thought 30 is.
Right now, we have a development that has 40 houses, and it's all serviced by one well.
Wow, is it really?
Yeah,
Okay.
but just because we zone it,
Yeah.
and the yield of that well is 40 gallons a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, it worked, even in the dead of summer, it was yielding 40 gallons a minute,
Okay.
you know? Because we went pretty deep, you know, like the water table, the water table in the summer does drop, but not 25 feet below. You know, it could drop maybe 8, 9 feet.
Yeah.
But it's still pretty healthy.
Yeah. Okay. There was
And
another
the
question.
quality of water need not be potable, it doesn't need to be, drinkable water.
Money for the parks and recreation. My first thought was, how is that gonna benefit this particular project?
It won't.
It won't.
It will benefit the general public.
Right, which is nice, for the town of Dayton, but I think our concern is
That's what it
this particular project.
is. No problem. I'm happy to propose something similar to Stony Brook.
I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
Why don't you ponder it amongst yourselves?
Right.
I'm happy to do either way.
Okay, that was it.
Okay.
But thanks, Greg, for doing that.
Greg, do you have any? I guess, Ling, I know you
Well,
kind of
I
went through
spoke
that.
with, then we had a meeting with the department heads last week, and then,
Yep.
we spoke with the playground committee, and there is a couple pieces of, the playgrounds throughout the town that do need some extra funding to help bring them back to healthy conditions. Not as much as the one across the street, but the one in North Dayton.
North Dayton is kind of,
Yes.
it's not, it's lackluster.
Yes, and so they were open for ideas, if we weren't gonna be, enforcing a playground on the property of, Strawberry Fields, that they were open for ideas that we can allocate some money to use throughout the other parts of the playground and stuff, whether it's across the street, whether it's here,
Yeah.
there, North Dayton, South Dayton, all the parks that we have. So Mr. Rhines was interested in something like that, to see what we could come up with, but at the end of the day, on the playgrounds, Bishop said that, he was open for suggestions, like you just stated there, because I ultimately feel that 30 kids, okay, that's pretty much what we're basing it upon, whether it's more or less. You know, they're gonna have their own yards, they're not a big yard, parents wanna put up a swing set here and there, I get that. But, there is gonna be some kids that are gonna wanna wander out of this development to go to another development.
Yeah.
And that's been one of my biggest pet peeves with the 138. So, I'm not speaking for the board, but in my opinion, I really like to see something on this development, but if they can't make that work and it's not gonna work on the HOA's ice, and then listening to what he said, it becomes more of a nuisance and it becomes more of a pain for the HOA. I think that's something.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification for that playground space.
Yeah.
And Fisher, you can answer this one, probably more directly. Because if the funds that theoretically would have been allocated for there are going to be moved to support other playgrounds or other playground, usage in the town, does that mean that you're gonna do nothing with that space, or are you still willing to make it open space, seed and lumen seed it, so it can at least be open space that until it's finished will still be maintained by you, mowed, cleared, etc. So I think that's important to clarify that,
Sure,
because there's cost in doing all of that.
right. No, we will not be looming and seeding nor maintaining. If we're gonna do that, might as well finish the job but we're happy to leave it as open space, people will walk through it, there'll be trees, there'll be shrubs, and vines.
So you don't consider Stony Ridge a success?
Certainly.
Stony Ridge, the park area you put in, you don't consider that a success?
I do, but I think it's a success from a beauty point of view. It's comforting, it's nice. Some people said no, but I tell you, a lot more people use it in a negative way than others.
That's fine.
It has been used a few times by the
That's too bad.
development. So the development has used it a few times where we've had community, activities where somebody's had a birthday party or something
Right.
else. We've had a
Right.
couple of barbecues for the whole neighborhood,
And
things. So
And
it has been used by everybody to let you know it
It
hasn't
has.
gone unused.
Yeah.
and the gathering, the people who gather there who are doing any damage, they're not from the development.
Right,
Right,
right.
right, okay.
Now, Stonegate, I know at one time you had an interest in it, and what was your opinion of the Stonegate playground that we put in?
Can I plead the fifth?
Sure,
Okay.
sure,
Enough said.
sure.
I don't wanna beat the playground.
No.
But it covers two issues. It covers our concern with 138 and the kids crossing, and it covers something to do with, with those kids, but it covers something to do with the kids as well as, the security or the safety of 138. And I seem to think that that's why it's such a sticking point. It's almost every conversation starts out with, what are we gonna do with 138 sidewalks, which we have no control over, and what are we gonna do with the playground for the kids and water?
I think
We haven't moved past that since, since we started, but it's gonna be a sticking point.
Well, may I give you another piece of data, that just perspective? Today's kids play with this.
Yeah.
okay?
Right.
So, so in my opinion, and which I am totally neutral, I'm happy to do either way, in my opinion, few bucks put towards, because I tell you, these kids in this whole development will not be using the open space.
No.
They won't. Okay, this is from a,
Well, it's
I'll do
not
whatever
just,
you
it's
want,
not
but
just the kids,
the
you
end
have a
result-
certain number of adults that
True.
don't wanna use the open
That's
space.
true. But they always had that option, because the way, the area we were contemplating is this one, here,
Right.
to leave it wide open, either this or this, okay? So, that the development will own that. So they have, if at one point, the homeowner association say, you know what, we see a need, we wanna just kinda get everybody together and have a barbecue, they could always do that.
Yeah.
You know, they own it. But in my opinion, at the end of the day, you're gonna find out that you're gonna develop it, very few, yes, probably over, Stony Ridge has been up for now 5 years. It's coming up on 5 years in a few months. How many times, Jonathan, do you think it was used by residents?
I think by the community
Yeah,
or community residents for an activity like that twice a year.
twice a year.
The rest of the time, it's just kids hanging out, but it's only twice a year that it's been used by, adults, if you will, for adult activities or family activities.
So if it was my decision, I would leave that decision up to the homeowners. When they get done, they own it, they can spend a few $1,000s to do it. And I would take that money and have the general public benefit from it. If the money spent here, probably 20% of it is gonna be used by this community. If it was spent for the general public, 100% of it would be used by the
Right.
rest of the public.
So can we put this issue to bed tonight and decide what we wanna do instead of just,
I'm fine with that, I mean, I think that's, Margaret, I think that we can
Yeah, absolutely.
decide that
However
actually
you
tonight,
wanna-
yeah.
it just seems like a sticking point.
Right, and I
Yeah,
think we're on a different parcel of land that it wasn't such on a high traffic street with worry of people crossing the street.
Right.
I don't think it would be as heavily discussed as it probably is now.
Yep.
But it is so it doesn't sound like it'd be a significant issue, but I can see why it is. But I'm definitely not opposed to us arriving at some kind of
Just point of order.
Sure.
I think it would be in the nature of a proposed condition. If the board
Right.
were to vote favorably,
right.
Yeah,
we would propose a
Okay.
condition that would require, boom, and then we would respond to that. And I
Right.
think,
Okay.
Off of 195, so 185?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it that way, or you can just give an indication about what it is you as a board would like to see done.
well,
We can talk about a proposed condition, or we can work out the details of the proposed condition down the road. I don't
right,
think we have to
yeah, no,
come up with the
absolutely,
wording of it.
absolutely. I just heard, a
Right.
determination.
Yeah, I was
Right.
yeah.
well,
Get a sense of like a straw poll or a sense of which way the wind's
exactly.
blowing.
My gut feeling coming into the meeting was always something that's going to benefit the people of Strawberry Fields.
Sure.
But with that being said, it doesn't seem like that's an ideal, because of all the developments you've done, they don't pay off. Then maybe it's best to benefit the town with a donation to the playground fund.
Yeah.
Although I think, I don't think I would want it just to be, here's a blank check.
No, I don't think so either.
Um,
We can obviously put more direct language to it. I think when the time comes, whether we treat it as a condition or.
Yeah, eventually
Or
this would
event-
turn into a
but-
condition,
But
but,
I think we pretty much have put it to bed in that sense. I think we realize how they feel, and we kind of,
Okay.
definitely.
I just couldn't make a decision.
Oh, I know that.
Oh no,
Going to the
I
entire
know,
board on
I know,
everything,
I
you
know, I know. Yep. Okay, Greg, was there anything else from the department head meeting you felt is important to bring up? Sure.
Okay, so the Board of Health, Todd, had stated that the test pits, which I think we discussed in our last meeting, I just wanna make sure we get this all on the same page.
Yep.
That the test pits be done again with Mr. Pillings on site, for the third party. Bishop wasn't opposed to it, understanding he already did it once, but he'll do it again.
Twice.
Okay, but he would like to at least set up, I don't know if you've reached out to Todd in regards to
Yeah.
finding a date.
We put Chris put a language in the decision that this will be done.
Right, because the concern they have, okay, so this is the concern that, I don't wanna speak for Todd, but from what I understand is, their concern is that they're saying the water tables are incorrect on your paperwork, which in return would take this entire project and redesign this whole thing around where you have these test pits that are incorrect. So, that's why we're trying to find that, he feels, after speaking with them, that we're putting the buggy in front of the horse without having these test pits done, furthermore investigating on those. That's one thing that was done with the test pits. Underground utilities, there's certain spots that must maintain 10 feet separation. You had something really for 15, we're making sure we have the must maintain 10 feet separations. And there's a couple areas with the water and sewer additional precautions where the lines would cross. We're just gonna make sure that if there's any of those spots that we get that hashed out before we get too far into the project. Then we talked about the streetlights. Every 80 feet, which you discussed, which is more than sufficient after.
80 feet?
If you have every 80 feet on your drawing, I believe, that was trees. That was trees.
Oh, that was true.
Sorry. So they said they go anywhere between 250 to 300 feet, 3 poles.
Yeah.
So streetlights, and I
Yeah,
think
we-
you guys.
Right, and I think you're identifying the department head concerns, I think we can address each of those sort of in turn, so.
Sure.
Because we have answers to all these.
Yeah,
This is great.
that's exactly why I wanted to bring these all up.
Yeah, right.
He asked me what was stated at
Right,
the
yep,
meeting, I was
perfect.
going over it.
Yeah,
So it was about the street lighting, we wanna make sure that the dim light, dark light lighting,
yep,
they meet the electric light board's criteria, which are dark sky compliant. The water main inside and outside the road. Okay, so the water department would require us to put the water main, the water lines in the road. Highway department requested the water line, didn't request, but stated it would be better to be outside the road. So that's something that the board can decide what they'd like to do, but, you know, ultimately, this is something that there was a couple concerns they had, and, the reason why Mr. Ferry said it's easy to maintain, it's in the grass strip outside the road, if they have a problem, it's HOA in your case, be able to access this problem quickly. Landscape, we're going by what you had sent to us on the landscape designs prior, it was just a vague thing, where you had the Bradford pear trees, going all throughout the project. We had a few other type of trees that, might be in concern with the Bristol Aggie School, nearby farms, open space, could become, nuisance species for the town, multiple native trees, species are preferred, you know, pollinating habitat, all that, so we can give you some other ideas of different types of trees, not saying we're not gonna take that one tree, but maybe mix them up with a few different kinds of trees throughout the project. Sewer pump station. Again, I haven't read what we just got inside, I guess, today, but we had a letter came from the sewer department, but what I did see on when we talked with the sewer department, when we got some information is I think we just went over, is the volume of how much the sewer pump's gonna push, we don't know until we have an actual design, how it's gonna flow, and the water pressure and all that stuff. So until we have all those answers, these are the reasons why we're really holding back on some of these things until we can get all these little things cleared up so that these boards can understand why, all right, yeah, I get you, you're right here, this is exactly what we want. We do ask though, on the sewer treatment pump, the pump, that we're not gonna just have just enough volume for like your development, we wanna increase that by a little bit, so it has more than what we would need on a norm. Between 25% to 30% is what they were requesting. Let's get the calcs, let's get it all together, come up with a plan, we'll get an idea on what that's gonna value for, and where it's gonna be located on the development until we know where the gravity fed and all that stuff's gonna be, again, elevations of everything. So, that's pretty much what the department heads have talked about, nothing that you guys haven't heard, it's just more of some clarifications they're asking for. Stormwater is something really big, you guys, I know, comprehensive permit, you don't have to meet with stormwater with the way it's worded. I realize that stormwater is new to Dayton, and after speaking with a few department heads on the stormwater, I really think if you guys sat down, again, you can't change anything with EPA, DEP, all that stuff's gonna be met regardless, but at least understand where the town's coming from, certain points in there. Once we have a set of plans that we know everything's gonna stay, that's when we should go in front of stormwater. But I really think the test pits, unfortunately, is something that we need to get that really, that way we can say, all right, this is our design, we can go with it. If not, then we gotta start all over again.
Okay,
That's where the board and all the others are
do you
talking.
guys wanna go ahead and address the concerns from the,
yeah,
Yeah.
so obviously, you know, again, for the record, Chris Agostino, counsel for the applicant. That was obviously a lot of information, and again, I think similar to last time, a lot of it was consistent with concerns we've already heard. And our goal at this point is, I think everything that was stated can be addressed as conditions in the permit. So I'll give an easy one for an example, okay? You mentioned Board of Health, concerns that somehow the water table that has been verified by 3 independent soil examiners is somehow substantially off, that we would have to redesign the whole project. Well, we would submit to a condition that prior to final approval, and remember, from the beginning, we've always talked about, we say that these are preliminary plans, they're actually, you know, I mean, as far as engineering drawings, they're pretty close to construction drawings. But that being said, there still is another iteration of planning and analysis that has to take place, and this board still has an opportunity to review those, and at the time, if the plans come back before the board and this board gets comments from another board that, hey, we have a serious issue here, and it's determined by the board's peer review engineer that, yeah, we still do have a serious issue, then the project doesn't go forward at that point. But the key is, at this point, where we've been through months of hearings, we've heard these concerns, those things would be put into a decision that this board would say, before you come back to us with the final plans that you are then gonna get stamped, record in the registry and then go build, we need to know that this has been re-observed by the Board of Health. And again, you know, I think this project is gonna be subject to the Conservation Commission's purview as well, under the Wetlands Protection Act, which also has an entire compliance process for stormwater management. So I think the idea is, let's, on that one, we don't plan to go back out and do witness test pits before this permit's done. And I think at this point, that's something that the applicant is gonna put before this board as something where we
Say that again?
we are not going to go back out and have witness test pits as a prerequisite to proceeding with a decision from this board. We're asking this board to say, we have given you all the information that we're planning to give you, okay? We're not gonna spend more money to do additional witness test pits at this point.
You
So,
realize this board's asking you for some information that you're telling us you don't wanna give us.
all right, at this point, as far as, the information that's being requested is another witness test pit, okay? We are telling you that this board has sufficient information on that line item to make an informed decision on the preliminary plan.
Let me tell you from a very different perspective. You're saying you're asking for information that we're not willing to give you. What we're saying is, we gave you that information. First of all, we had an engineer go review the water table, the test pits. Then there was a letter saying, no, we want either the Board of Health or a third party engineer to witness it, so we did that.
Yep.
Now they're saying, no, those 2 times are not good enough, we want a third one. We believe that although we're happy to do that, but we believe that will make, you know, it's bringing undue delays and changes after we've been trying.
The reason why I'm saying this to you is, this is me speaking, not as a board.
Sure.
But if I was gonna be putting out all kinds of money on engineering and all the things that you're gonna be doing on this thing here, and you don't want, we find if it is found that it isn't in the right spot, all this is gonna get changed, and again, now we gotta go for a modification to this drawing.
To that point, to that very point, Bisher, God bless him, has already spent God knows what on these plans at this point, based on the water table that we've now had 3 soil examiners confirm.
But you gotta
We wouldn't
understand,
have
this
done all
board
that
has
plan.
also seen another set of drawings that your calculations from the one prior to this, the developer prior to this, was extremely off compared to the elevations that you have now. Extremely off, 6 feet.
That's impossible.
That's why we're talking
There
now.
is no, the whole thing was 30, the water, observed water table is 30 inches.
So I'm just saying,
How
I
could it
was
be
told
6
there
feet?
was 6 feet difference in some
So
locations.
6 feet lower,
I'm not sure exactly how the wording was, but it
See,
says, there's count,
If I may?
yes.
I have those reports, yeah, it is indicating the
Okay.
water table is lower.
Our water table is low, is
No.
low?
The prior ones were lower.
Okay, so now
we're-
it's
more
higher and-
conservative.
it's more conservative.
So that makes me feel a little better, but I'm
I
just
mean-
saying to you what I've been told by other board members,
And,
other boards.
just for your information, the third party engineer that did it, nobody was present, I wasn't there.
Right.
Nobody was, just the operator and him, and the surveyor, just marking where they are. So, I mean, if I was so magically voodooing him, it would have been,
I'm not speaking for my board, I'm just speaking as meeting with different department heads and questions and concerns. One of them is that the elevations did not meet the same as what the other applicant came in with the same development with different elevations. Now, Peter, you're saying that
No,
the,
I'll say, I just pulled these out, I got a chance to go through my own records and pull these out of the prior submissions. I haven't looked at them in detail to compare them test pit by test pit, but in general, their test pits, the test pits they submitted recently are about 2 feet to 3 feet range below the existing grades. These ones seem to be ranging approximately 5 to 6 feet below.
that's what, 3 feet, yes?
It's more conservative.
Mhm.
More conservative. These are test pits that were observed by the Board of Health, the Board of
Other
Health
one.
agent.
Actually, can we go by those test pits? So, I think what we're getting at is, part of this is a process issue, cause I think whoever's asking for that may not fully grasp the process that this board and this peer review and everyone's been through to this point. So, hopefully, we can get that particular question a comfort level that, look, we can go back out and observe those again. This preliminary design was already done on what would be conservative water table estimates. So if it turns out that we go back and review them and it's lower, then we already have the capacity and separation where we need it. So,
And oh, by the way, we still have another process, the stormwater management to go through with conservation,
Mhm.
where everything's gonna be reviewed, and I had planned on, rather than doing 2 more testing, very costly to have the engineer, the surveyor, and a machine, 2 more times, I figured, let's go through this, and then we'll do it again, 1 more time, 1 more,
Everything's done.
and everything's finished. And I know, I know Todd is a very respectable engineer, and I'm sure his comments are right on.
Mhm.
But I don't know what his, there is no way when a water table that's 30 inches deep is gonna be 6 feet too low. That would mean that the water table is 3 feet above grade, so, but he's, we're gonna bring him over,
Yeah, these are the things that he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
bringing up in the
we're
meeting.
gonna bring him over and have him witness every single one of them, but I know it's not gonna make a whole lot, there might be 6 inches in different of opinion, oh no, this is this there or that way,
That was the whole thing that we were concerned is the elevation of the road
yeah?
to the house lots being at the right elevations, and I was being told some spots were 6 feet. Now Peter's looking at it now, if he's saying it's 30 inches, and it's 30 inches to the good, then that's not that bad.
No, I'm not saying it's 30 inches, it was just trending on average,
Yeah.
Yeah.
didn't do an analysis to see where
Yeah,
each
some of them are
these
42
test pits,
inches.
Mhm.
fall in place with the roadway or anything like that. But the 2013 test pits with the town inspector on site during them, so, it's hard to imagine that the seasonal high groundwater levels are gonna go higher and be
Right.
like a foot below the ground, that
Right.
seems very extreme for the area.
Okay.
Our assessments were done at the low areas where we're planning, stormwater basins and everything like that, so I'm not sure if those were septic or something like that, which could have been a higher area. But,
Yeah, I don't know.
Again,
If there's other information out there,
it says, this is what Todd Pilgrim's requested that I talk about, so.
And once
have
we
all
go
the
through the
documents.
preliminary process with this board,
Mhm.
we do the full design. I have to then kick into gear and do the full design for conservation, cause they wanna see everything.
Yeah,
And I have all the confidence in Todd, but whatever doubts he has, we're gonna put them to rest next round.
And after conservation, we come back here for the final.
so,
You'll have the final.
Would it be helpful to the board if they received into the record for the next meeting that comparison between the 2013 report and what was submitted for this project from Mr. Williams?
I
I
think
would
so,
like that, yeah.
okay,
That's something you
I will
could
do that.
That way I have something that I can use for that too.
Let me know if you want us to do a plan showing where those are, and if I want us to show.
That might be helpful, I'll mock something up maybe.
Alright, so, that issue,
Could I ask a question? Who was the witness in 2013?
Okay, it is, Jeff Watton,
Who?
Watton,
There's no, in 2013, I was the soil
Okay.
evaluator and the witness, and I never went out to that site.
Okay,
So, that's
are there
all.
other records that,
What's the guy's name on it, Jeff Watton?
WATTON,
That's nobody with the town,
okay,
because I resigned in 2017, and I never went out to that site.
okay. I didn't know if there was times that you weren't available.
Okay.
Okay,
So maybe you wanna check in with the Board of Health.
I'll check in with the Board of Health and see what information they have, and I can do a comparison.
Okay, so, and then we have, any updates by the, zoning board consultants, Marguerite or Peter, do you have anything new you wanted?
I don't know, did you wanna address
Is
the
it-
other town board comments
So,
yet, or no?
yeah.
Oh,
So
I think we should.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, so the other two big ticket items that we've been kicking around are water and sewer, and we've talked about those at length. I know Bisher has offered, some data to this board about the effluent flow or the septic sewage flow coming out of his other similar developments, to give some comfort that the design flow for this project, despite the density, is not as intense as I think the water and sewer department, as far as the load on the water and the capacity to handle the sewer is concerned. So we've given that data. The other thing that Bisher did commit to help mitigate that, and a proposed condition is that we would commit not to pull the first permit for a housing, for a building permit, for a year and a half following the execution of the permit, the issuance of the permit. We can propose that as a condition, and what that will do is, it will give the town some time to go figure out, whether it has to buy volume, which ultimately, and we heard it on the record, they could buy water, and they have to figure out how to do that fiscally with Aquaria down the road or whatever else. But that is an issue that the town over time has to address, not just because of this project, but because of the growth of the town generally. So it was a year and a half before the first building permit, then we would limit the number of building permits that we pulled to no more than 25 per year, I believe was the number. And then that is a phasing program that will allow the water department time to determine how it is gonna plan for the next 50 years of Dayton's water capacity. So that was something that speaks to both water and sewer. As we sit here today, we technically don't even need a waiver from a moratorium. We did receive the regulations for both the water and sewer department, and we did identify a couple waivers. We can meet the 10-foot separation that was noted, and I believe that's the standard. We thought it was 15, and we had asked for a waiver. But if it's 10, then yes, we meet that. And then as far as the sewer pump, I'll let Greg speak to that, because I'm actually not as familiar with, what exactly we're looking for, what data you were referencing.
Well, there was, until we know the water flow, what we can get for pressure in there, right? That's why we was trying to talk about, trying to find out the water flow, because this is, if we can't offer you water by the time in a year and a half comes in, even though we're trying, because I believe that, I think he said it takes 2 years just to get a design together for the water treatment plant. Okay, this is what I wrote in here, I gotta go back and think about this, but, if we were to even say, okay, let's just, go forward, and we can't offer you water, how do you plan on building it until we can offer the water?
So, again,
I'm trying to come up with
Right.
ideas.
no,
I know
think,
you can't get a permit without water.
yeah,
Just
so,
water
two
pressure.
issues. Pressure, we have to, from a fire safety perspective, maintain pressure. So we can install pumps that would accomplish that.
Okay.
And that's something that, before we pull the building permit, we have to
figure
address.
that out, yeah.
On the volume issue, as we sit here today, if we walked up to the Dayton Water Department and asked for a connection, and we were just off the street for a single house, all right, which if you went to apply, we'd walk in, there's no moratorium. and they'd have to issue us a permit. I mean, there's no moratorium in place. So if at the time they did say that, you know, we're issuing a moratorium, or we're gonna deny you a permit at that time, then we'd have recourse to this board, if they somehow went off on their own. But, you know, as we sit here today, the statement is, as far as we know, there was room. It was gonna stress the system, but there was room, and they were doing some additional
Like he had
testing.
said, I think you said the entire infrastructure had to be installed in order for the water and sewer to maintain its flow and all this stuff last time, correct? The entire infrastructure, not the buildings, but the road, not topped, but all the infrastructure had to be installed in order to get a proper flow. Am I correct on this?
Well,
We phased.
So you can phase this development without
We're
doing
not
any,
gonna, you know.
cause I know that the sewer
Say
department,
over it.
yeah, okay, we just have to get those calculations together, and also if it's going to be phased. I'm not sure, the last fire chief never let us do, like gravel turnarounds
Mhm.
for fire
Yeah, that was
trucks.
on your list.
Yeah.
That was-
But if, we have to talk to him, I do see that he did that for
He
you.
he mentions a comment that he doesn't want a gravel turnaround.
Is that what he stated? Okay, I
Right.
didn't see that yet, but so, if we do it in phases, we gotta figure a little bit of blacktop for, like, ends and turnarounds for the fire apparatus until the
Temporary
development's
turnaround.
going forward. But from what I understood, and again, there's so much stuff going to gathering, that I thought the entire infrastructure had to be in for the flow and volume of the water and sewer going out and into the building, infrastructure. But if you're saying you can do it differently in phases,
Yeah, I think that would be a meeting with the water department, see how that would work.
okay, is that something that was brought up?
Yeah, I could just say, I mean, you're gonna have a T head, you know, which is minimum amount of extra
Okay,
pavement, and, you know, then you just don't have cars going down there and spinning around and stuff like that. Yeah, a T head at the end. And, you know, they'd have to work out with the water department, you know, that in the building inspector, that with just a spur of water line, that they have adequate water pressure. They still have to maintain that. And it may mean that they have to do, you know, more frequent flushing of the line, but it's,
I think
there's
what's
a lot
more-
of dead end streets in the town.
Can I ask to the developer, if, I'm hearing what you're saying about, waiting a year and a half, waiting the 18 months, contingent upon, you know, what would happen, water going down the road, but, no pun intended, but, having said that, is the developer willing to make that 18 months contingent with an extension of up to 1 or 2 times, pending upon what the town is doing? And the reason I'm asking that specifically, using the word contingent, is so that the town doesn't lock itself into that 18 months if the town is making its best effort, so that the developer doesn't later say the town is not showing good faith. Is the developer willing to make it contingent and do an extension of 1 or 2 18-month periods, if but not 4?
So, I think that the answer is, if there's no moratorium at the time, then we are entitled to water like anybody else is entitled to water. If there is a moratorium that's a local requirement, then this board's permit is our recourse to get an exemption from that. Because under 40B, it's a local requirement. Now, then the burden would be on the water department and this board to show that, guys, there's just no water, and we can't buy it from Aquarius
We
or
talked to
Aquarium.
Aquinas, in regards to that, and, the problem that the water commissioner had stated to us, not the commissioner, but the gentleman that was here is the amount of chlorine they put into Aquinas to make the flow go to Brockton and keep it clarified and keep it up and running is a lot. In order for us to do a tap from there, Dayton does have a tap off Aquinas, I'm not saying they don't. But if we were to tap off Aquinas to come to your development, the amount of filtration and chemicals that would have to go through, you didn't know if it was gonna be adequate drinking water by the time it reached your development. It's very high in chlorine, is that the word that you
Right,
used?
that's what you had said last time.
Chlorine. I'm just throwing
Just
it
because
out.
of the
no,
length that
Keep in
it takes
mind-
now.
Keep
Yeah.
in mind too, that it's not like, okay, after a year and a half, we're gonna turn the water on, and we're gonna have 100 units, you know what I mean?
I got you.
So after a year
I'm
and a half.
just trying to make
okay,
sure you
so
can get a permit
so
when you
in
have a
2
amount
years,
of power.
There's gonna be 6 additional units after 2 years. I think now, there's that room for it, right, even now, without having to do anything. 6 additional, connections, or even 10, you know.
Right.
It's not gonna be so
Yeah,
burdensome.
so you're not gonna try to pull a permit for a year and a half, that gives them some time to come.
No, right, I'm not,
I get that, and then we're gonna put up 6 houses, I mean, I think I heard you say something between 25, I thought it was
Yeah.
You
12
agree
to
to no more
15
than 25 per year,
Is that 25 units or 25
permits.
permits?
Permits.
But,
And
so
we
the
don't even know how many we
townhouses-
might build and how many might be online.
How many are on, and how many units would be in the townhouse?
So as far as phasing, I believe you talked about doing the single
Yeah.
family.
well, we're gonna, well, these buildings, this is 12 each, and this is 14.
And when does that, when is your plan to apply for those building permits? Because that would be considered one building
No,
permit?
no, connections,
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay.
yeah.
Is it
No, no, no.
25 connections?
25 households, units.
Units,
Yeah,
okay,
it's one connection.
okay.
Right. No, that wasn't like a trick.
No, well, that was the reason I
Yeah.
asked, is the townhouses
No.
were multiple units in the building.
Connections.
Were there any more, things from these, department head meeting you want to address? Anything else?
So that was water and sewer, we
Yeah.
heard lighting.
yeah.
Okay, yep.
So lighting, we've proposed a lighting scheme for this, and I think we discussed, you know, that the idea is, there's not going to be street lighting, but we did commit to install lighting that the homeowners association would be responsible for at the crossing of the road.
We've
And
got
then-
every cul-de-sac till you had one or something
Yeah.
like that.
Why
Yep,
don't
so there's one
Yeah.
here,
Yeah,
there by the bus stop,
yeah.
there, there, there,
That's where I didn't
And
see
it-
any down there.
And when you, s-
there, no.
I didn't see any
There,
through there.
there'll be lights in here, we got one showing right there.
I thought, did we talk about at the crossing here, where you have these dark areas?
Can you tell me about lighting?
yeah, I was gonna ask if you could just clarify what you meant by, that the HOA would be responsible for, I just wasn't sure what you guys meant by that. In terms of financially responsible, or,
Yes.
okay,
And upkeep.
Upkeep.
upkeep too, okay.
But I think just to close the loop on the comment was, we wanted to see it per whatever standard. Well, the idea is we've designed a lighting scheme for this site as a comprehensive plan, so that's what we're showing.
Like I see, I've talking to a couple of people about the lighting, that are on that committee, that 300 feet is, you know, max they'd let you go. So, as long as.
Okay, let me tell you about lighting, because we always face that.
Mhm.
I have subdivisions that the residents went to the town objecting to how many lights there is. It's always a catch-22, you have too much lighting,
Mhm.
because, I'm looking out my window and it's, my house is,
Well, that's
or
what
not, or insufficient lighting. So we did the happy medium, which we think is sufficient. Right now, by the way, Stony Ridge has, all of Stony Ridge, which the length of the road is about the same, no, this is a little bit longer, has 3 lights. Okay, here we're proposing, like 10.
Well, on this backside, Bishop, over where it comes into the power lines come down behind the cottages, there's
Yeah.
nothing through that whole entire length, if I'm not mistaken. You gotta
This
be-
here,
Yeah,
here,
no, up where his hand is.
Here?
Yes.
The easement,
Now, well, I guess you're gonna say you're gonna be using lighting that's on the building itself?
not only that, the condominium here is gonna have its own
That's what
lighting.
I'm saying,
Right, so as to illuminate the parking,
okay.
right. So this whole thing's gonna be all lit up.
Would that cover the parking and like the entrance drives
Right,
going in?
exactly,
Right, at the
exactly.
intersections.
So you are
And,
gonna.
and here,
Down there, is there?
There's one right here,
Okay.
and one at that corner, and one at, so at the intersections and these little areas in here.
It's funny that you say that about Stony Ridge, because I think it's too dark.
it's too dark.
Right.
Yeah.
I went and picked up Jonathan tonight, and we've transported Jonathan to here and home, a half a dozen times for these meetings, and I hate backing out of his driveway. Because I never
Yeah.
know when I'm on the road or on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And I've been driving for 40-some
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, well, so this is why we made, you know, we added more lighting.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'm happy to listen.
so, Greg, so based on what, opinions you heard, are they suggesting that they want to see more lighting then?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay,
no, no,
okay,
no,
okay,
not at all.
okay,
Dave just told me that as long as they meet the dock light specifications,
Yeah,
which they-
which
which
they
one
are,
do they
Sky,
do?
yeah.
yeah, dark sky compliant,
Yeah.
and that they're not greater than 300 feet apart.
Which they are.
Yeah, they are,
So
so,
they're greater than 300 feet, so essentially what we would ask for is a waiver from the 300-foot requirement and approval of
I
that.
can send this out,
Yeah.
I just added this, before it came, send this out to the
So we are over 300
tomorrow.
on
So
some
what are
spots.
we, in some spots, what's the longest that we have, do you know offhand?
You know,
It's not a big deal if you don't.
I don't
Okay.
remember.
the spacing?
Yeah.
What's the longest
Roughly.
spacing?
I
See
do not have
what it
to-
is?
Okay, thank you.
What's your house lot, 50 feet across the front?
Can you measure them on the plan?
so that was-
So this is.
So you're just asking for a blanket waiver from the lighting, not up to a specific amount?
As per
We're
the
asking
plan.
for a waiver, yeah, we're asking for a waiver from the 300-foot max distance between
Right.
lights
To go as per
and
the plan.
approval per the plan.
But do you show, I'm just trying to make sure, is there a page on the current plan that's been submitted that shows the entire site where all the lights are gonna be?
I just submitted hard copies, today,
Oh, sorry, thank you.
and this is the rest here.
That's gonna help,
So that's it there?
okay.
So what have we got roughly, Greg, from the backside of the developer coming all the way down towards the
Here,
townhouse?
down here.
Just an idea, roughly,
About 800 feet.
800 feet.
But-
That's the only
Above
spot
here.
that's, the illumination's not really meeting.
That's the 300-foot
Yeah.
requirement.
That's the backside.
So you're talking 2 more lights?
What?
Thank you.
houses too,
Yeah.
so,
I think you said he had one right here. See the little X?
There's a little left.
Right.
Okay.
There's
Right.
that one.
so if you, and you
Then
have,
you
all
have-
this is lit,
Yeah, that's illuminated, but that's what we ran from the last light
yeah,
to
so
this.
the other one is here, you have all the houses right here.
See, no street light will be installed at every intersection at, and the end of cul-de-sacs refer to grading, can you see that? It's, that same message right there, so, no, sorry, right there.
Yeah.
Did you see that, Michelle?
Yeah.
Okay. At the end, so this for the record and the public, it says, note, street light will be installed at every intersection and the end of cul-de-sacs. And this is referred to the grading and utility plans, for locations. So,
He has one on this cul-de-sac. He
there,
has one there.
there
He
is
has one
him.
there.
one within the
I see that.
cul-de-sac too as well.
Yeah, and then he has one
Eight
within the
lights.
townhouses as well.
You see eight, Peter?
Yeah, it's the 8.
That's what I see too, but I think there's more because you didn't show anything on the townhouses?
Yeah, he's got one.
There's a small,
five.
2 small ones on the left side and the right side on the townhouses.
Oh, yeah, there's.
Oh, there's one in the middle too.
Yeah.
Right here, yeah. Which one right
Yeah,
here?
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
you can barely make out the X on the plans, but it's there.
Yeah, it's just small ones.
Oh, okay. Yep, I see
Okay,
those now.
where, sorry,
So,
They're right here.
Got one on here,
alright,
with these two over there.
That's all,
Two,
11.
but in here, there's just one, right?
No, there's 1, 2, and 3.
Oh.
You see the small dots? They're not, almost not
I
X's.
just got these glasses.
Yeah.
Oh.
how many are there?
Oh my goodness.
11.
11.
11 lights.
Yeah.
okay. So, any other, items you guys wanna address for the meeting that was discussed, or
So,
we had lighting?
I think that was
you
it.
know, I think as a general comment, what I heard and what I saw in some of the correspondence, again, goes back to a process question or maybe a misunderstanding of the process in that some of these other boards said, well, they have to come before our board and get our approval. But,
Well, that's not what he was saying, the reason why I asked for a department head, when we all had a meeting, all the department head members met, I I just wanted all the input from all the other boards, so I can
Right.
come in front of you guys and say, hey, these are the concerns that these guys are having out here. So it's not like they were saying that you have to come in front of the board. These are the few concerns they have, so when you guys are giving us some literature, we can send it back to them and say, hey, this is why they're stating
Yep.
it. And hey, they're correct, or hey, they're wrong on this,
Right.
whatever, and then we can go move forward. But, there was a couple things too, the sign out frontage right here that you're about to put.
Yeah.
Just make sure that gets to the building department.
Of course,
All right,
need a
because-
building permit.
For elevations, remember when we ran into something over
Yeah,
here
yeah,
with
but we
sign
had-
or
yeah, I
something?
knew
I just
that.
don't want it to become a problem down the road, so I run that over to him. There was something else too, but it's nothing major important, I mean, I got bombarded, let me just say that, when
Alright.
I couldn't.
So then, before we just read, just going, following along with the agenda, Peter or Marguerite, do you have anything additional you want to add, or any new input you guys have? Marguerite, do you?
No, just to let the board know that I spent the time between now, the last meeting and this time, looking through the waiver requests that we had, and, you know, so that I could provide some guidance to the board when it's ready to review those.
And I've been working with
I was
Marguerite
working
on
with
that.
Peter on that, so that's what we've been doing, given, you know, the pieces that have been submitted, and knowing that you were meeting with department heads and you were doing this. So, that seemed to be the appropriate next step for the
Next
board
step.
to start moving towards,
Yeah,
but, you know, some of the things that you're talking about today all come into play there, so
Yeah.
if you wanna start with the conversation around playgrounds first, because I did hear what you were saying, that
Right,
really impacts two major issues that this board has been
Yeah, absolutely.
discussing, that would probably be helpful to everybody to hear and have you guys moving forward, and then it looks like we're gonna be getting some additional information from Mr. Williams, and we've gotta take a look at this lighting piece too, so.
Well, I was gonna say, before you put the lighting plan to bed, don't hit me, but I think you should put one more sign on Cranberry Lane, instead of, so you're not 800 feet. It's not gonna be a big deal.
And so we don't have room, can we put it on the power lines? No, will they let, yeah.
We'll put on either side of it.
Just so it ain't in front of a house, cause I see where you were trying to locate them, so they're not direct lights in
Right.
someone's home. I understand what you were trying to
We'll
do.
be getting somebody complaining on my
Sure.
bedroom is.
Yeah.
Just, if I can add to that,
Of course, yeah.
we talked about, prior about making sure that those driveway entrances were properly lit. Whether that takes another light, it may, to the condominiums.
I'm sorry,
Uh,
The light posts at the end of the driveways,
You have the,
Yeah, you got three here, 1, 2, 3.
I had asked if
No,
these,
talk about-
you know,
yeah.
I'm not sure that those should be,
Oh.
properly
Yeah,
lit.
no, we'll do that too.
Okay, and the other thing I was concerned a bit by is, you have an intersection here at the far side on you have a big open space where people will be turning and moving, so you probably should have a light here.
At the end of the cul-de-sac of the
Yeah,
cottage.
sides,
Yeah,
both sides, there, no?
yeah.
The only thing is, I would ask, I hear you, and I think these are very valid points. We try to design the condominium with its own spirit, with its own
Okay.
lighting scheme.
Mhm.
So those lights might be different in shape,
That's fine.
you know, like decorative shape, different, but the intensity and the dark sky requirement will still be met,
Yes,
you know?
that's okay.
So, yeah, I have no problem with that. So, can you,
So where did you
Right,
ask
can
that
you-
for,
did
down
you-
here in the
so
cottages
he
too?
wants two here at the entrance, and one here?
Yeah, that's what I just gonna say, I'll get back
Okay.
there.
My only other concern might be on this corner here, just where people are turning,
Where the potential open space would have been, that area where you differentiate there.
That's fine.
We're back to 300 feet.
No, you're not even close.
Somewhere around here.
Yeah, so I would think it would be there too.
I thought I heard him say on either side of the
Power lines.
power line in that
Well,
lower vicinity, but maybe
How
not.
does
I
that
think
for
it-
doing the lighting for this,
Yeah, do you think-
headlights for the.
Maybe it's just,
so there is landscape posts lighting for each house, or there isn't?
No.
Okay.
We were proposing that, but then Greg came up, you know, with a good point, okay, what happens if everybody doesn't wanna turn their lights on? You know, because that's metered to
Right.
the house rather
Yeah.
than to the, you know.
I'm not turning that light on.
So, just for the point of the record, I would like to read in,
Yes, these two.
read in
We got one here.
correspondence that we received from Diane Curtis. We have correspondence, all from Diane Curtis regarding the her comments from the sewer commission. Michelle, as a clerk, could you mind reading those into the minutes for
No,
me? So that would be the packet that's
the three,
Just the first is the most recent one, the others are previous letters.
so
okay, so did you want me to?
the one
Alright.
from March, I
So
dated
it's
March 10th,
dated
yep.
March 10th, 2020, attention Town of Dayton zoning board of appeals regarding Strawberry Fields Estates. Gentlemen, the Board of Sewer Commissioners met on Monday, March 9th, 2020. At this time, the proponent has not provided enough information for the sewer commissioners and their engineers to make a decision regarding the availability of sewer for Strawberry Fields Estates. The commissioners wish to reiterate that decisions regarding the availability of sewer connections to the systems as well as discharges into the public sewer systems should be made solely by the commissioners. Please refer to the attached correspondence of January 23rd, 2020 and February 11th, 2020, respectively, Diane Curtis, Office Manager for the Board of Sewer Commissioners. So these were already read?
Yeah, so those are our previous ones.
Good job, Michelle.
So, no, Greg, no, this is, when she's saying the decisions regarding the availability, should be made solely by the commissioners, I mean, that's a decision that we,
Yes.
as a board, take
Right.
on, correct?
That's on us.
Right.
So it's not, I mean,
She's just requesting
Exactly.
that we ask them first,
that they make the decision, not the zoning board of appeals.
and we can't really do that, right? We can't change what the law says in terms of what our power is versus what theirs is, correct?
Well, I suppose you can change it, Sue Marguerite, if we wanted to let them make that decision, we can do that, but I don't know why we would.
I think what the board has typically done in these cases is that they haven't really addressed, they have required the developer to go to the sewer commission at the point in time that you are, having the application in more of a finalized state. They
Yep.
still need to go before them and
Right.
get approval, because they have different input that you want. You have not necessarily just said, we're gonna handle every sewer commission
Yeah.
element here. So typically, developers have gone before the sewer commission, the water district, at the point in time that they're ready to build, and address those concerns that they may have at that time with them.
Okay.
So, we can look at this and we can have a conversation about it. I think it was fair. I don't see that as a blanket request to just deny the waivers.
I wasn't
think
sure,
they are
that's what I-
particularly
yeah.
addressing
That's what I was asking.
specific requested waivers, and when we get to that, we can provide, further
With conditions.
deliberation on it. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think we need to hear a little bit more from the developer, exactly what it is they're concerned about doing before the Board of Sewer Commissioners, and that's some of the commentary that I have in response to these waiver requests. Many of the waiver requests provided, the rationale given is just, this is a 40B, we don't have to do this. Now,
Right.
sometimes that works, but sometimes we need to understand a little bit more, what is it that's the problem here? What is it that you're not trying to do? And we may be able to qualify the language that's within that regulation. So that this isn't the board saying, that the sewer commission has the power to prohibit the development from going
Right.
forward, but in terms of looking at its own individual needs and expertise in the area of sewer,
Yep.
you're saying, we still want you to go before that board, what is it, we're expecting that the fees are being complied with unless you're asking for a waiver here, and we're addressing that right now, you're expecting that, whatever guidance the sewer commission may give based on its own reviewing engineer is still things that you're gonna be doing in terms of development of the infrastructure. That's typically what you've asked them to
Okay.
do. So I'm kind of cluing you in a little bit, look at what it is you're really concerned with in terms of that request, and it may be just simply that, that the board says, with regards to development of the actual infrastructure, the sewer, you still need to go before the sewer commission and get that approved.
And I think if the next step is to confirm compliance with unwaived
Yeah,
sewer
it could
commission
be, that
regulation,
could be the
or
way
to
we could work.
confirm that the proposed final plans comply with what they're looking for in terms of the infrastructure.
Right.
And then clearly, if there ever was a disconnect, we'd still have recourse to this board. But I think we're kind of on the same
I
page.
suspect we are, I know that,
And that's the way the law works as well.
Right.
56.10 talks about upon presentation of final plans to the board normally charged with reviewing that issue, which in this case would be the water or sewer,
Right.
so we go to them with the plans.
Yeah.
They shall then issue the permit if it's consistent with the approval, so I think we're on the same page.
Yes, my sense from the comments that I saw was that they just didn't want you somehow feeling like you didn't ever have to come before them, or present plans, or have those plans reviewed. This board is not looking, I would be shocked if this board was ever willing to do something like that either, but they do understand the requirements of 40B, which is that you have to have the ability to waive requests within the regulations of the sewer commission and the Dayton Water District, and that if those waivers aren't granted, there's still you can still insist that they go to the sewer
Well,
commission water.
this is one of the reasons why I was asking a couple of questions, is because of the amount of volume we're gonna be using for water, we don't know until we have the infrastructure design like we're working on now. Sewer, these,
And all of those things would be part of the final
that's, I
plan
think, a
design
lot of
that
the
would be
reasons why you're
submitted
getting this.
and need approval, and need you to stamp and get final approval on. They don't have to necessarily be determined at this stage. It's not unusual for this board to get the comments that it gets. We have not yet seen a final plan where we can really truly assess and confirm approval.
So to that point, you know, for instance, we haven't done the actual hydrant pressure test. And we did that as a courtesy, we held off on that. So understanding that data would be post this permit, I think what we did shortly before this hearing, and, you know, I'm sure the board members haven't had a chance to dig into it yet, but we proposed, conditions of approval. And in that proposed condition of approval, we proposed language as to what that condition would look like relative to things like final plans, including water and sewer. Between now and the next hearing, perhaps the board can look at that language. If you wanna consult with the water department on that language, feel free, but ultimately, this board is going to be responsible for the words on the page that describe the process going forward. So, as far as water and source, so that's where I think the next step would be on that one. As far as the waivers, I don't think there was anything too technical in the Water and Sewer Commission's regs that, you know, we wouldn't expect a waiver from. I think we said we could meet the 10-foot separation, so we'll do that. But I think going back to my prior comment, there was some language in there, in their regs, that to me read as though, well, we are the final arbiter on whether or not anyone discharges sewer or takes water in the town of Dayton. And that was the premise that I was challenging. And, you know, we can see what that final approval process would look like. But as far as the waiver, I think the waiver would say, you know, this shall not be construed so as to, you know, if, I think we've requested a waiver of it. If Marguerite's saying, well, that's not enough, then I think to resolve our concern, it should be, well, we're not deferring jurisdiction to another board. So we can look closer at that language when we get there, but that's our concern.
We do have, I remember the sewer department out there talking.
Yeah, when we get to the public hearing, public input, we can get to that. So the next thing in the agenda was just review, discuss, and act the revised development plan as submitted. Is there anything new that you guys saw that you want to address, specifically on the new plans? I mean, one we got tonight with the,
I think we discussed, I told them about the sign, going to see the building inspector, I said I didn't have any issue.
yeah,
Talked about the street lights, we talked about the trees, different types of trees, versus one type of tree. Is there any other things that I saw, not me really?
I haven't seen anything yet. Dad or Michelle,
No.
have you guys seen anything on the new plans you wish to address?
So, I noticed that the street lighting plan that was submitted tonight didn't have a revision date on it. It shows still the 129 date, so I think you may be going back to take a look at this anyways,
It's like,
in light of the comments you heard from the board. And so my suggestion would be you submit an updated street lighting plan that shows that revision date so we can refer to it, and then ideally if you could get that in to the board sooner rather than later, they might be able to talk to, is it the street commissioners who, yeah.
Just like to capture any other changes so we can do a full set.
One more revision.
instead of having individual revision dates
I don't
for
think there's
individual
any more
sheets in the set, we like to have a full set with all the same date on it, so, does anything else?
Probably say
I'll
more
double check.
PR.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, it's fine.
You wanna do it?
Alright, so then next, we just have, extension of public hearing date past March 20th, 2020. Mark, how are you looking on the extension from that? We gonna have them sign one,
So March 20th is when we have
is when it will
the
be,
congregate. Yep.
right, do we have a new one prepared, Jonathan?
Yes, we do.
We do.
Well, I think we gotta set the next public hearing date and, I don't even, what is
And yeah, and there's also, discuss, next site walk visit. Is that something you guys discussed at, was that the
Yeah.
department head meeting or was that the workshop?
It was the workshop, and I wanna say it was the March 23rd.
Yeah,
First.
I'm
I
sorry,
need to
21st, yes, it was
So
a Saturday.
So just a clarification on that, is that something that we'll need to, the board will need to do a certified mailing to the abutters, for a sidewalk visit?
So it would be part of the continued public hearing.
So when we have the next, yeah, we would
So
continue.
you'd have to make a motion tonight to continue it for a site walk visit.
There was a couple concerns, and, I heard some people saying they couldn't make the weekend, they'd rather do a weeknight. I'm open for
And yeah,
suggestion, to me,
it
it
just-
doesn't matter either way.
And for the record, this date was tentative, it is not, it was
Yes.
not anyone deciding it was gonna be
No.
that day, yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever
And I
date
think
the
we
board
do-
decides on for the site walk visit, they'll need to make a motion tonight to continue the public hearing to that date, as well as a date for the continued next public hearing. You're gonna need to do both of them, so that you would post that, and it would be part of this entire process. To answer your question, you don't need separate certified abutters mailings, however, given the interest in this in the past, I would encourage you to maybe send out a notice. Bishop, in the past, you had done some information, at least to some of the surrounding subdivisions, doesn't have to be by certified mail, but maybe in addition to whatever you post, it might make sense for, there to be some type of, whatever town information system that you use, it might be helpful to
I don't see a
get
problem
some
with that.
words out, maybe any people in the audience that are aware of this could also help get the
And
word
if it
out.
is gonna be and it is a continued public hearing, we wanna make sure all the board members that are voting can attend.
Yeah, right, right.
I think at the managers meeting, there was a request, Greg, maybe you can help me here, by one of the town officials, to not have it on a weekend.
That's correct.
The day is getting longer, so.
Yeah, we start at 6:30.
Right.
I mean, so are you guys still thinking that week?
Well, we wanted to do it before the mosquitoes and bugs, which is, we don't have much time before that starts.
And we're walking through it,
They're not gonna go too far, and you're probably gonna.
The only reason why I ask is because, so pretty soon I'll be, actually tomorrow, I'll be preparing the the work, schedule for the, March 22nd to the 28th, which I do make, but I just want to know going into tomorrow what day we're picking, so I know to make sure I'm available for it. I could have done the 21st, but obviously, Michelle, if you can't, then that rules that out, but I do need to make sure
How
it's.
about the 20th, is that open for anybody?
Marguerite, is there a certain amount of time the butters should be notified?
No, they
So
don't
they
have to be
don't
notified.
They don't
Yeah,
have
leaving the
have to be
20th to the
notified.
22nd.
I know, I just don't know if we're gonna notify them.
I can do the
I could do
19th.
that.
19th. Is that enough time, Marguerite? 19th?
I mean, you can set it for whenever you want to.
I do have a conflict on the
Okay.
19th.
So I think that the week after would be better, cause like I said, I don't have the schedule made yet, so I can more make sure I'm
Monday,
available.
the 23rd? You're around?
Yeah.
Does that work with you?
What time are we thinking? I know,
Not available?
No, I have another town meeting.
so if it's,
We can't do
if
How
it's,
about
Oh,
this?
we can, yeah.
if it's during,
I don't have to be.
if it's on a weekday, are we looking at the evening
We have a meeting, why don't we do it before the meeting?
on the 25th? It'll still be light out, right, but then,
Yeah.
yeah?
The 23rd works.
Well, we have a
We
ZBA
don't,
meeting
we
the
don't
25th
currently have anything
on the agenda,
We don't,
but
we don't.
I've got it listed on here as a day of.
But that we would typically have a meeting that day, that is correct, but as of right now, he's right, we have nothing on the agenda
I'll
for
do
that.
whatever, I'm open that entire week,
The 25th is not an issue for me,
not an issue for me either,
that's typically a day that I wouldn't work anyway, so that's fine.
work for you
So,
guys?
so Michelle, you have to be available,
Yeah.
does that work for you guys, the 25th, that Wednesday?
We don't need to have an engineer there, do we?
No, it's just.
I don't
a
see why
walk.
You can
not.
add-
I mean,
you can
why?
send Ed, right?
Yeah, I could go.
Because he's the surveyor.
So as long as the three of us can be
Probably good to
attending
have
this.
them this
Yeah, we
Peter, is that something that you want to go to, or feel like you need to be there
I
for?
think it would be helpful in case a question came up that you.
Sure.
Does that day work for you?
Yeah, the 25th.
So now we're gonna do a tentative time.
Either, the 23rd, you can't.
I'm not
Don't
familiar.
get
I
done.
do not plan on attending that,
Ah.
you know.
We just still have to figure out the shuttle,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar enough with the daylight and how that's gonna work. So what time will it
6:30, 6:45, it starts to get dark.
start to get dark?
So if you meet at
So do it
6,
We also want to make sure if it's during the week,
Well-
if people are out of work now. We have to, you know, I mean,
Well,
I understand why the week during the week is better, but now we have to make sure that we're not, you know,
6
putting it.
o'clock, works for me,
sunset is
5:45.
7:03
Yeah, like
PM on
5:45
March
probably.
25th.
So seven.
Okay,
So,
so,
Sounds too dark.
beat me to it. Beat me to it.
get flashlights, let's go.
All right. So
Last time we were gonna show up 15 minutes prior, we're gonna meet here in the upper part of the town hall parking lot for parking purposes. Fisher was gonna have a car that would drive
Yeah.
people over to the actual
Now,
site.
there is enough, if the board members want to park there, there's enough space there for like 4 or 5 cars.
Sure,
But for the public, I thought, we could
have an option.
shuttle them.
and I would say probably most of the residents that have interest are going to be living right there.
So they can walk down.
Yeah, I mean,
But-
but it might not.
No sidewalk on 138.
Don't bring that up.
Right. Right.
All right, so why don't we make a motion that we, have the public walkthrough for the Strawberry Fields on March 25th, arriving at 5:45 at the Dayton Town Hall. It'll be shuttled in for a 6 o'clock walkthrough.
So I think we should probably hold off on that motion until we're ready to continue the public input.
That would be.
That's fine with you?
That's fine to do
That's
at
fine.
this stage.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Greg.
I did.
All right. So do I hear a second?
Second.
All right.
Any discussion?
Any chance it could be earlier? That's Board of Selectmen, Board of Health night.
At 6. Okay.
Okay, well,
That's fine by me. I don't care.
why don't
make
we,
it 5:30.
can we do,
Hey,
is
even-
5:30 work?
Even.
Does that
How
work?
about 4 o'clock?
No, I'm at work.
Oh,
Well, that's I know that's the thing of running into.
what time do you get back to town? What
I
would-
don't get home until 5:30, but
Oh.
I can leave work a little early, but I don't know how much. I can't leave at 3 to get here.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I could do 5 and work through lunch.
You're not gonna be able to walk that far into this project.
You really are not.
Yeah, right. What about, okay, so
10 minutes.
I rescind what I just said. What if we do it on another day?
How's the 27th, Friday? Is that
I
open?
think I tried that.
Oh.
Somebody said they couldn't do that. I'm good for it.
You can do it at any date that works for everybody, so. I don't think there was a vote on that motion.
Then there wasn't a vote, so it's fine. You know.
Can
Does
rescind it.
27th work for you guys?
Michelle can rescind her second.
Yeah?
There's no board meetings.
Right. No.
That
I
on
see. Where I see.
Friday,
I see
so-
where
Do
it's
you
at.
want on the 27th at 5:30?
So
You
we're gonna
can do
meet at,
6 o'clock.
yeah, it was gonna be 5:45 if you needed a ride from the town hall. And then we'd have the walkthrough at 6, and we'd be shuttled back in no later than 6:30. I would take it, must be what it would be. So the 27th is what we're pushing for now?
That's fine by me.
27 at what time? 5?
5:45, you're gonna have someone here to start shuttling folks from
Yeah.
this town
Yeah.
hall.
Just gonna write that.
Meeting to start at 6 at
Yeah,
the site.
it'll start at 6, yeah.
And that's the sidewalk.
Yes.
How about the next meeting here?
Before we move on to that, Greg, could you rescind your motion, your first motion, and then?
He did.
I
and then-
did.
Okay, you did, and then, so you make a new motion,
Alright,
so that.
give me 1 second to finish this, okay. So I make a motion that we schedule a walk through for Strawberry Fields on March 27th. Meeting at the Dayton Town Hall at 5:45 PM for a shuttle service to be brought over to the property for a meeting at 6 o'clock for the walkthrough.
I have a question.
Second snow.
Oh, one second. Do I have a second?
Second the motion for 5:45 at March 27th, Friday, March 27th, for Strawberry Fields Walk.
And
So-
the meeting will start at 6.
And the meeting will start at 6. Sorry.
Is there any discussion?
Yes. So
Alright.
here's my question. If, right now, I'm ultimately, I'm recused from the ultimate final vote on this project, that's gonna happen once it's closed. However, if that might change at some point, for any reasons because of the other members and the numbers, and if it means that as a result of that, whoever's potentially gonna have to vote, if it turned out that I had to do that, should be at every single meeting. I cannot be there on the 27th.
Margaret, how,
So, in light of the fact that you've recused yourself from this, I would not suggest that you have any ability to be considered a viable member for voting purposes. But that being said, the fact that you can attend may be something the board may wanna take into consideration as it's looking at dates.
And that was my question, is going down the road, as if I had to eventually, if there was a need or a reason to become a viable member and it was accepted. By all parties.
I don't think you can in light of the fact that you've recused yourself.
We would postpone a hearing again if we had to.
Okay.
And
okay,
So it's been second,
yeah, I have a second, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Okay, so that's the date, March.
Now you can pick a
27th.
meeting for the next meeting, the date for the next meeting.
Yep, and just to keep in the back of our mind too, Jonathan also provided, us with a copy of the list of our upcoming regular meeting dates for the year, so we can, that's an item, agenda item for later, but we'll just keep that in mind as we're going forward, picking the next
I did it all in mine already.
potential meeting, so, what,
So
Go ahead.
those dates are probably gonna be reserved for, you know, regular
Right,
variances and
right.
special
One
permits.
that's conjunction, you're right.
This one.
Yeah, okay.
so, I guess, Marguerite, there's not really anything that we're like waiting for, correct, to be coming in at this point?
Well, I think there'll be some submissions for the next meeting, because you're gonna probably submit a couple of revised sheets or plan, correct? And it sounds like Mr. Williams is gonna be doing some analysis of the test pit data between the 2013 observations and the current ones. And it looks like you may be providing, this might be part of your revised plans, the specifications for the proposed development of the sign. So there's a little bit of information coming
Okay.
in, but I mean, it's only March 10th right now, so.
No,
Yeah.
just for my information, am I supposed to do anything with the sign? We would go with the building plans.
Yeah, it's, and again,
Before-
nothing got
before we
stated
wanna-
to me,
Yeah.
but I'm looking
Before we
at
wanna
the
build
size
it, we
of the
have to
person,
conform.
You're just thinking about the past and how it's,
how we've had
brought
problems with
forward.
signs, I just don't want you to do all this and then.
Okay.
it's
but
not a
okay,
big deal.
but we have no formal request or anything for being
Not
any
at all.
change or anything,
Nope,
okay,
not at all.
okay.
We do have a tentative meeting on the 25th. I mean, I don't think that's too quick to get anything you guys would need though, right?
I say we shoot for the 25th, we were gonna be here anyway.
That was our plan,
And
Yeah.
we have nothing on the,
except if we.
Correct, so it'd be fine. Yeah, we have no.
and it's too late for us to put anything on that agenda at that point, right? At this point?
Yeah, 2
Right,
weeks.
it's, yeah,
It's
there's not
just
enough
has 2
time.
weeks, so we can't post anything new.
Correct, there is not enough
I
time.
mean, is it, that's not, is that too short notice for you,
No,
for you
no,
guys
no,
to
that's
provide
fine.
anything?
Work good, guys?
You,
I think we can,
you typically meet at 7 or 7:30 for your meeting?
Regular meeting is set, is 7.
Always 7, okay.
the goal for that meeting would be to really start to continue discussion on waivers.
Yes, I believe that's what, yeah, that's what that's what I was intending on discussing, at that meeting.
Some,
With
yeah.
with Marguerite saying that's the next step we should take, that's what I was planning on us discussing.
And at this point, the board has some preliminary proposed language on water and sewer, that between now and the next meeting, you can give us some feedback on that.
For water and sewer, I haven't put together preliminary proposed language, it was just something I figured we'd deliberate on.
We had
I'm
suggested
sorry,
some
the
language.
stuff that you
We
had,
had
okay.
suggested
Yep,
some language.
I can take a
so-
look at that for sure.
that's what came in today.
It actually, I think.
Well, that's what I saw today, that we
Yeah,
had
couple.
highlighted in yellow.
No, those were waiver requests from the regs. We actually proposed conditions of approval with respect to water and sewer.
Jonathan, did you receive this document?
Was it proposed? I don't think I did.
We can?
Did you send this to the
Oh, I only
ZBA
sent it to you.
secretary?
I sent
I
it-
thought I saw that it was copied to,
The proposed conditions of
Yeah.
approval,
you had said you were gonna submit it to the board, but I wasn't positive if, cause you
Oh,
and I
sorry.
actually had some,
yeah, I
Discussion
remember
about that.
my thought was you were gonna forward it to the board,
Oh,
so I made a
I'm
mistake, not a
sorry,
problem.
I don't typically do that, I let you submit whatever you wanna submit
Nope,
into
that's
to
fine.
the developer.
So that being said, and the meeting would be in the next 2 weeks.
So I can email that tomorrow.
Yeah, so if you were to send that, do you remember, or maybe when you do that, can
Yeah,
you
so
note
2 weeks.
the particular conditions that relate to water and sewer?
Yep, yeah, and I
So
think
that
that
the
might
board members can
actually
look at that in particular.
incorporate a few of the things I heard tonight as well, so a few extra little ones that tomorrow I can work on that, and then I'll submit by tomorrow night, which gives you 2 weeks.
Sure. And then just flag the particular ones that you
Yeah,
think would be
I'll note in the
applicable to
email.
whatever was discussed tonight, or what, particularly water and sewer, because that will be helpful as we start the
Yeah.
waiver conversation.
So Jonathan, you can just let us know tomorrow when you received new information from them, so we know to start. You would have to come in the office for anything, or
Yeah, so, if, you know, if it's sent later in the evening, it'll just get to you on Thursday.
Does that work for, that should be more than enough time to look at the I think, especially now that we have a date set and we, know what we're waiting on, as opposed to wondering is something gonna come in today, we kinda know what we're looking for at this point, we know what the next steps are gonna be for us, so that works for me.
And then tomorrow night as well, we will file the revision to the lighting plan,
Okay,
With a whole set of new dates.
on the whole set, and then we'll just email it to you, or email it to Jonathan.
Sure.
Is
Yeah,
the
okay.
only page you're gonna be changing is the lighting plan?
I believe so.
So I believe you've already sent that, I just wasn't able to print it out because.
But we decided we're gonna put
Have a
more
revision
lighting,
date
different
on it.
locations.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
There's more lighting with new locations.
Okay, yeah, so yeah, if you could send the updated file, I can forward it to the board.
I guess my suggestion, only because I think the board's gonna want to send it out to other departments as well, is that if you can send it as a whole set, but if you can identify the particular pages you changed and send those as separate, that might be easier for us, rather than if you sent a whole set and then we had to print 15 copies to give to town departments, it may be confusing. If we said, these are the particular pages that were changed, we'd like you to look at these, and sent those to the different departments, that might be easier for, maybe I'm wrong, but I just could envision it could create some confusion with all the various boards and departments that we send this out to. Although I understand your point about wanting to revise the entire set with a date.
okay, so we have a, so I need to hear a motion to get to also officially set the date of the next public hearing. For Margaret would be, that's gonna be before the site visit at this point, right?
Right, the 25th.
No, yeah, it'll be before the site.
So we need to have, before we adjourn tonight officially, we'll need to make sure we have that motion properly stated to continue to the 25th.
You
Now,
can make
not-
it now.
You can make it now? Okay. So if I could, do I hear a motion to, continue the public hearing to the 25th?
Point of order.
Sure.
I thought we had set the meeting, but I thought we were gonna continue discussion about waivers
We
this
are.
evening.
Yeah, we are.
So, just to clarify, we're not closing tonight's
No,
hearing,
no,
continuing,
no,
it's just
no.
that, okay, setting the continue hearing, okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we, set our next public meeting, for March 25th, 7 PM, downstairs, Town Hall.
Second that motion.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Greg, this is my first time going. Did you guys start at 1 and work your way down, or what we do? Okay. So just for the point that it is 8:30, and I know we probably have some public that wishes to speak tonight. I mean, how do you usually go about setting that? I mean, we could technically do this until midnight going over all these. So I mean,
I guess a couple of different questions I have for this board. Do you wanna start the review of the waivers right now, or do you wanna have a little bit more deliberation on the playground piece first? That
Let's
would
go
be a
with the
question I
playground,
would
get to
have.
bed.
okay.
Yeah, and then my second comment would be, it might be helpful to get input from the public initially on what has been presented so far.
Yep.
And then start the waivers and get some input from the public,
Right.
again, before you close on whatever you might get to. I think it might be helpful to set an end time for tonight's meeting before you go too much further?
8:37.
Just while we're getting the administrative,
Oh,
comments, do you wanna
I'm
set a
trying.
date
Right,
for
Mr.
the
Big Bucks.
extension?
You don't need to, because you already are continuing this beyond the 25th, so
Yep.
you have to ask the developer what they're willing to
So
propose.
when we take care of that now, so we don't forget that, please.
What's that?
The continuing of the
Extension.
thank you,
Oh, the
extension
extension.
form, yeah, that
Yes,
needs to be signed, I wanna make
please,
sure that's
yes,
done
yes.
before we leave. So, what day do we typically go out, it'll be,
Well, I think we need to ask the developer what they're
Was it right on 28th?
thinking.
yeah,
To the 25th. And if we had another 2 hearing, the 15th or the 22nd, and 17th.
So again, as we've indicated all along, as long as the conversation is continuing, and we're having productive discussion about the merits of the project, we're willing to continue that conversation. So as far as an extension, I was figuring we could maybe push it out a month from here, and we could potentially even have 2 meetings in the interim, and then revisit where we are a month from now. So
We have-
currently, we're through the 20th,
April 22nd is our next ZBA normal meeting.
so do we wanna go to the 24th? And again, that being the putative deadline for the board to close the public hearing is the standard, and, you know, the board could continue to deliberate beyond then, but that just starts the clock running within which the board would have to render a decision within 40 days of the close of the public hearing. And again, all these deadlines are, subject to agreement to extend, but we just feel it's appropriate to keep some structure. So we propose closing the public hearing, by the 24th of April, which is another month.
I mean,
That
at
gives
this,
us a couple more meetings,
I
at
think-
least.
at this stage, I think that, you know, the developers indicated all along that they are willing to reassess based on wherever you are
Right.
at, and, you're not, other than having, it doesn't seem inappropriate to just accept this for now, and then
Right.
you can have a further conversation 2 meetings from now.
Right.
sure. Okay, so can you prepare that, that'd be the
Yeah, I
20th,
got it right here.
excellent. So,
24th.
Okay,
Yeah.
24th.
That's right.
yeah, it'd be April 24th, yes,
Friday.
Boy, Jonathan is on the ball,
he is.
he really is.
Signature.
Alright, so as we're wrapping that up, Wes,
We'll need a motion to accept it when
Okay.
it is completed.
Exactly, just have you sign it, please.
Yep. do I have a motion to accept the, extension of time period to April 24th, 2020?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we accept the continuance until April 24th, 2020.
A second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Alright, so let's wrap up this playground discussion. Personally, one thing that I definitely am sympathetic to both, both sides, but I think the lesson we also want is also something to become unruly to the point that now the an area that was once made to look nice is now more of a hassle. I don't wanna see anything gated or boarded up. In terms of putting a dollar amount to any kind of, I don't wanna use this term wrong, but donation or, contribution to the Parks and Rec, I don't know what that should look like. I know at one point you had discussed even giving money to the HOA for them to use as they will for that space.
I could do that.
That's something that was discussed
Sure.
a few months ago. That was one option that kind of sparked an interest in me. I don't really know, but
Or
it-
is there any specific, like, project or action that they were considering doing that I can do on their behalf?
yeah, that's the thing, is that I don't even know what that would be. I mean, I don't wanna say, yes, you have to have a slide. It doesn't, I don't really,
If I may suggest, I think for tonight's purposes, if we could just get direction, whether we're going with what traditionally is referred to as a linkage fee
Okay.
versus we wanna see something on site. So if we could at
Right.
least get that sort of, indication from the board, then that would be helpful.
I would say that we should forego something on site.
That's how I feel too. I certainly
Yeah.
do understand why that was at one point something that, but after hearing the amount of developments that don't seem to use it, I don't think it's necessary to put that kind of onus onto the developer to,
Right.
to force them to put something that doesn't even seem to be getting used. I mean, there seems to be, you know, ample space for the public to do what they will when the time comes.
Right.
But in terms of, you know, I don't personally, for me, you guys can obviously help me out in terms of, well, I know how I feel in terms of what you feel, but I don't think that we can, I don't feel comfortable saying, yes, you have to put something here. Right, how do you feel?
Mr. Chairman, my concern is that,
Jonathan, I'm talking amongst this is the board right now. If you have public input, you can wait until the end,
I
but
thought this is the public meeting, this is the.
but I did not open up the question to the public. I'm talking amongst the board right now.
Well, I mean, the linkage fee, I was speaking with the Park and Recreation Departments, they were, kind of excited to see some of that funding to utilize throughout the town's parks, cause there's some of them, ran down. And I ultimately, personally, I like the idea of having a playground or something of that magnitude on the actual site, cause it's been one of my concerns is 138 with the children. I do understand the concerns of listening to Bishop in regards to some of the other developments and how it just becomes more of a nuisance and a problem for the HOA, but that's pretty much a burden on the HOA, not on the town. That's the way I look at that.
It's a decision they make when they choose to buy.
Correct, it's there, it's gonna be there.
Yeah.
So it's what we're gonna how much is we're gonna make, have him put in for a playground, what are you trying to give us for an idea, on site, what would your thoughts be as a developer on this type of playground you're gonna put in there, you know?
And you said it's a linkage fee is what you've done in the past?
Well, it's just what you refer to, when there's a public need and it's linked to
Correct.
a development that, applicant's proposing. So you link this development with some other off-site, mitigation measure, so it's just one of, the term you would use for it.
Like I stated, Park and Rec was stating that they are needing funding, through the parks throughout the town, so something to keep in mind too.
It's one of those things that I understand what putting inside the sidewalk if they go in, and then but it's almost like there's almost seems to be more negatives to both sides. Like no, let's put in sidewalks so the kids go there. Well, is that even gonna happen? Are they going to put in sidewalks? And then to say no, you have to put it on site, and I say, well, are they gonna use it? It's like I don't see anything a lot of positives.
It's also gonna be a different ages throughout this entire development. So
Right.
you're not gonna have, yes, you're gonna probably have kids in the single family homes, but you might have, younger people in the townhouses and older people. It's going to be different. I don't think a playground really is the answer. I like nature trails myself, I think that's better. People like walking, especially older people. You don't have the malls anymore, you don't have anything like that. But an outdoor space is pretty good too, excuse me. If you had maybe a few benches in there, or not even benches, maybe a picnic table here or there, but I'm not really sure.
You're referring to the space in the middle of the cottages,
Well,
correct?
yeah, cause you really can't put it in the townhouses. But a playground, I don't think is going to be the answer either. I think you're going to have, people coming in from other areas, and I think it's going to be too much of a cost to the HOA to just maintain that if they have to take over that.
So Greg, are you more wanting to see a actual playground or just a space?
I'm more towards the linkage fee.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying you wanted to see something on
No,
property.
I mean, the more I think about it, the more how the property's laid out and the way, you gotta realize this here shows a large area, that's power lines.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's other things there, I don't need kids playing near that.
And it was the kind of thing, where would it go?
We're not talking about 100 kids.
No, we're
No.
talking 30.
30.
And,
Yeah.
and also, as a whole, talk about define kid.
So-
I'm a kid,
so
in theory compared to some people, so
I would say
mean.
a linkage fee to the playground commission, almost sounds like the way to go.
That's
And
how
leave
I'm,
the
It's
rest
for
is
the
open
community,
space.
yeah.
that's how I'm feeling.
They could
Yeah.
use it throughout the community, and where they did stress that there is some areas, especially North Dayton Park, that's, really not, I mean, it's within a mile and a half or so of this development.
Yeah.
Something in that area down there that needed some work.
So, what kind of a linkage fee are we talking about?
I don't.
$197,000. You know, we talked about.
Well, what it is
What do you
whatever,
Are you looking to fund a particular project, or,
it's really what,
I mean, cause it sounds like we have a number of parks in town that could use a facelift,
yeah,
and,
So I think for tonight's purposes, I'm hearing the board say that
your plans
after
are fun.
consideration,
Mhm.
we'd like to do a linkage fee.
Right.
So I think between now and the next hearing, maybe go back, talk to the
Yeah.
Parks Department, if they have a shovel ready,
I couldn't make that decision
yeah,
until
ask
we
them
all
what
sat here,
they're
that's
thinking,
why I
and
never
then,
said it.
you know, maybe we can save something like that for,
Well, actually, my thought might be that, because it's up to you to propose, maybe perhaps you could do some of that outreach to
we could.
Parks and Recreation or Playground Commission,
Right.
yourselves,
So
to
it-
find out if hear from them
Sure.
what the need is, and then,
So in terms of process, they
Tim
propose to
Ryan's.
us what they're looking for.
I
Tim
think that would be
Ryan's.
helpful.
Tim Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll have his.
He used to be on the board.
You can email me.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, as a voting member, I cannot say that I am.
Okay.
I am definitely more in favor. I am in favor of the linkage fee more so than an actual project. You know, if there was space there and there was ample reasons for why it should, but
So of course,
I'm
that's
not
not a
really
problem
seeing
about
that.
changing the, putting something on the plan.
Say that again?
So it solves your problem about putting something on the plan.
Okay.
That part.
I mean, you guys are
I
board
like-
members. I
I do
mean,
like the
Yeah,
idea
no,
that you were
I
saying,
like the-
maybe some public seats.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're gonna sit out there.
I don't think it should be geared to just children, I mean, there's going
No.
to be a variety of age groups in here.
But most people like, they wanna sit in their own home, I get it, but if you
Yeah.
wanna roll out and walk around.
and like we were discussing before, the ones who have these houses, who have the children, they're gonna have the yards. That's one thing that we
Mhm.
had talked about from the start with this, is that the ones who have the houses and the cottages aren't gonna have the 3 or 4 kids.
Either starting or retiring.
Right, so I think like we were saying how like we're
Right.
arriving at the number of kids that would be there, the bulk of those kids will have, well, more than likely, I can't assume, but will have that yard.
Jumping around, did we figure out where the dumpsters were gonna go in there?
Yep.
Right there, okay, alright. That's gonna be corralled and,
Yeah,
the gate.
fenced in, yeah.
Okay.
So no, Marguerite, and that was one of the things we wanted to go, start this discussion, do you feel that that's enough to go on? For
It
the,
sounds to me like the developer feels comfortable and has a direction to go in.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
Okay.
if you send me, I'll contact you.
On that one item you just mentioned, is the dumpster here over by the condominium buildings?
Right at the street.
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
For this
Okay.
little thing,
It may be advisable to have a little pull-off for people for people to drop, not have to park in the middle of the road.
I see.
You know,
Okay.
little so they can pull off, get out of the car and properly put the stuff in.
Did we also take in consideration the truck picking the dumpster up
Yeah.
and putting it back in with a tree?
I can also walk,
Yeah.
sidewalks
I
connected.
know it's just a spot, but you gotta keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Pulls out.
Yeah.
That's probably gonna be a
Way to
big
get
truck, right?
by walking over.
okay, so, now that we've gone on from that, we can now, go to the public, so, the time is now 8:50. I would say, what, 9:15-ish probably,
that's fine.
9:15, alright. Okay, so,
Did everybody sign in on the paperwork that's here today?
yes, if you do wanna speak and you haven't signed, just make sure that you sign in. If you could just have the hand raised and just wait until, you are addressed to speak. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this case regarding anything we just talked about, or, any other, comments in general about this case? Jonathan, go ahead.
So, if somebody could sign me in, please.
Yes.
Jonathan Gale from Waterford Circle.
Yep.
And I'm gonna specifically go back and focus for a minute on the conversation we were just having with regard to that open space area. And my question to the developer is, first of all, if it's determined that there's gonna be linkage, is it the assumption that you're not gonna do anything with that space, and does that include not clearing it?
That's correct.
Okay, so,
I could clear it.
Because it's
except that
gonna
it would
go
just
wrong.
be an open field
Yeah,
with nothing,
not
no
only
grass, no
open
weeds,
field, yeah,
no
it would
nothing.
be rocks and, yeah.
Okay,
probably-
I just wanna get this out so that the board going forward has some thoughts behind it or direction on how that
Which I
space
don't
will or
know.
won't be cleared. What's the actual, dimensions of that space? Does anybody know?
Right here.
There's
Yeah, this one.
This is ours, guys, we double it. 140 feet by 80 feet deep.
80 by 140 roughly.
Do you mind doing the show? I couldn't see where you're pointing to, that's all.
This right here.
Okay, that same triangle.
So I'll tell you where I'm going with this, the 140 by 80. If the developer is going to consider linkage as a component for how this might work out, the developer has currently different, what they value as the cost factors for if they clear the land or don't, if they put loom and seed it or don't, based on square footage, at rates that have been used in other developments in the town in the past, Stony Ridge and in the Pines. Those values come to many thousands of hours per unit for much smaller spaces. So if the developer is looking at linkage and cost value, then I think the developer should provide some figures as to what the developer has determined the figure to be per unit before in square footage for the cost of looming and seeding / clearing the land, 1, 2, or all 3. Because that helps the town determine what they're looking for value and linkage. Do you all know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, I mean, and I think a lot of that will come from, your conversation with the Parks and Rec director, right? And then, I can't say for sure you will have an exact dollar amount, but based on one discussion, but we'll have more of an idea of what it is that what the town feels, yeah.
No, I'm sure the developer will be fair about it, I have no doubts
Yeah.
that he won't. I just wanted to get that out there in terms of, on the record of what the town might be considering for need versus what the developer considers need.
Yep. And then, was there anything else, Jonathan?
Not right this
Not
minute.
really, okay, anybody else? Yep, Nancy, go ahead.
So I wanted to follow up with a conversation I had with, Owen, about the Stormwater Committee's involvement. I'm looking at the waivers, items 73 to 87, and the reason given is, it's all the same, that the ZBA would review the plans. I don't mean to insult anybody, but the ZBA is not qualified to deal with the stormwater thing. So what I'm looking for is guidance so that the Stormwater Committee can act as an advisory committee to the ZBA after we meet with the representative from the developer, so that we can give you information about this is okay, a concern here or a question there, just to give you some guidance. Now, when I spoke to Owen back in February, I offered him the meeting date at the end of the month, but that happened to be the day his wife was due to deliver, so he had other priorities. So we have a meeting coming up the end of this month, that if somebody from the developer would like to come, whether it's Owen or somebody else, we would certainly make space for them on the agenda. We could give them a specific time so they wouldn't have to come in and sit through a whole stormwater meeting, but we could at least cover some of the important things that we're looking at.
Do you know when it would be, Nancy?
Yep. It's during the day. And it is the 26th of March, posted for 12:30. We would probably take care of some minor things on the agenda. So I would think from 1 o'clock on, if somebody were willing or interested in coming, as I said, whether it's Owen or someone else, just so that we could go over some of these things ahead of time and have a little bit of discussion, so that when you have your next meeting, we can get back to you and at least give you a progress report on where we are.
Is that a meeting that you would feel you would like a zoning member to attend, or you?
It's a public meeting, anybody
Okay.
can come. I mainly mentioned the somebody from the developer because somebody reached out to me.
Right, absolutely, no,
And
yeah.
so the offer is certainly open.
So,
I
but,
think-
Bishop, we wanna make sure that Owen gets that
At 1
information.
o'clock, at 1 o'clock on the 26th?
I would say 1 o'clock, that way you wouldn't have to sit through all the,
Sure.
whoever comes wouldn't have to sit through all the minor things.
Yep.
Sure. The main concern, excuse me, on the part of the Stormwater Committee is, in the letter that we sent, it says at the end, our concern is that nothing gets violated, and the town doesn't get fined again. And I did speak to somebody at the EPA, and, the response was that, if a decision is made locally, that in effect violates the NPDES, the discharge permit, the town could expect to have action taken against it by both EPA and DEP. My other question specifically was, if there is a violation, would it, if a board in town overruled something the Stormwater Committee said had to take place, had to be done, who would you take action against, EPA? Would it be the company or the developer, or would it be the town? And the responsibility falls back to the town. So obviously, we're all concerned about that whatever occurs, none of us end up getting fined again. So, but anyhow, I think we really can work through this. And I'm hoping, since Concom also has to meet with the developer's rep, we may be able to have a joint meeting and work on a lot of this stuff. The meeting I gave you is definitely stormwater, but as you know, Mr. Frenette, the chairman of the Concom, will be there. And maybe we can tie this all together, that if we have questions left, you can all come up at the Concom, so we're not having meeting after meeting. So that's what I would suggest we would like to do.
I guess, could I help, you asked if the Stormwater Committee could act as an advisory board to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I would see any of the comments that are being provided by town boards and departments as absolutely advisory information to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So I would encourage the Zoning Board of Appeals, if this meeting does take place, to be on the lookout for and wait to close a public hearing until it receives any further input from the Stormwater Committee about what was discussed and any thoughts that they have with regards to the regulations, et cetera. And it may be that some of your comments are that, you would encourage, that this will be addressed in more detail when the Conservation Commission reviews their permitting element here. So I absolutely, yes, you are an advisory committee from my perspective to this Zoning Board of Appeals. And it sounds like the developer is willing to, even though he's not obligated to, willing to meet with you, which is great. And I would hope that this board and the developer understand that this board would want more detailed comments after that meeting from the Stormwater Committee to help them deliberate on waiver requests.
And
That list that I mentioned, all inclusive, includes Board of Health. We also have Board of Health people on the Stormwater Committee. So that may also eliminate some meetings, but definitely, after the meeting that we have the end of this month, we can certainly send something to you about that discussion of what took place and what came out of it. Just so you have that.
Greg just told me that he's able to make that meeting.
Okay,
So,
as I say,
it's
open
in there,
public,
so.
anybody can come.
Okay.
So I would just mention to the board that it is a public meeting, anybody can attend. If you're a 3-member board, if 2 of you
Walk away.
attend, you are able to attend and not deliberate. If you're going to potentially have any conversation together, you should post that as a public meeting for this board.
I will risk, I will not take that risk of any kind of a meeting, so Greg, if you're able to attend that, then please, Greg, I mean, you kind of serve as a point person for a lot of these meetings, I know that I can't make during the day, so, if you want to attend that's more than fine, I think, if you're able to, I think you should,
Well, I think it's
so.
in the best interest for me to be there anyways.
I agree.
Get some input from Nancy, these guys can get some input together, we can all be on the same note, relay it back to everybody, and,
So the meeting is in the lower level of the old town hall.
yeah.
The meeting is posted for 12:30. However, the agenda item I'm going to have Roz insert will be for 1 o'clock, the
Lower
Strawberry
level, so
Fields.
that's the little room,
Oh, excuse me,
upper level.
upper level
Okay,
town
Okay.
hall.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. We're gonna have company, so yes,
Upstairs next door.
Okay.
yeah.
Just making
And
sure.
when you, it's park in the front and come in the front door.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else here from the public that wishes to be heard, questions or comments?
The old green.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Just a few things, I represent a few other boards. What was the actual width of the roads that was decided?
I wanna say 18.
That's what I saw.
No,
22.
no,
I'm sorry, 22 versus 24.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, Pine that said 18.
Yeah.
Pines were 18,
Okay.
yeah.
18 did not work.
Yeah.
Just because it's somewhere else in town doesn't mean it's gonna work.
Yeah, it was 22,
22,
2
yeah.
feet less.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Second, has it been decided yet, is this whole project gonna be considered for acceptance? Or is it gonna stay homeowners?
Yeah.
That was something we were gonna talk in the next thing with all the conditions and waivers.
Yep.
With the road, what is your opinion on it, Tom? Because right now, Bishop was open to both options.
I think we'll go both options, but if you're not there yet, that's fine, I just need to know where we're going, because it leads to other questions depending which direction we
So
go.
that's fine.
Right.
Hand them out there.
So, the third was that you commented on trees earlier.
Yes.
I think what helps determine the species, I know I heard some good comments about the species picked, but are all the utilities gonna stay underground?
It says multiple native tree species are preferred and provided better pollinator habitats. John will provide a native tree species listed for future review. A diverse planting of multiple varieties of trees should be a better solution to avoid mass tree die-offs. That's all I got out of that.
Actually, the question he asked was whether or not all utilities are gonna be underground.
Right, because that would determine the type of species, because the native trees would be too big if you're dealing with overhead wires and
They are.
stuff.
They're all underground.
All underground, yeah, so, yeah, I've worked with Bishop before on some other projects. There's actually some good examples, so other developers in town,
Okay.
as a showcase, it works out well.
Yeah,
The street lighting was mentioned, again, it comes down to whether it's homeowners or not. We do have electric light commission in town, and they have contract with National Grid on the type of light poles and lighting, if that's not gonna be homeowners, so I just wanna make sure you guys are aware of that.
So we're gonna cut that hashed out. I believe you're gonna do this under homeowners, is what we discussed earlier. So it's gonna be homeowners.
Because if you change that, that causes a problem.
See, even with the Pines roads have been accepted, but the roads, the lights are being paid by the homeowners.
Okay, and that's what you wanna do here too?
Yeah,
So the homeowners association is gonna take care of the lighting that's gonna not be on anyone's meter, but a homeowner's meter.
you're correct. It'd be
Okay.
on one meter,
Yeah,
it's paid by the
yeah,
homeowner.
okay.
Or maybe multiple meters depending on,
You got that, Tom? So it's gonna be
Yep.
under a
I'm not an
homeowner.
electric person, but
Yeah, I'm just
it's
making
just something
sure
I'm
you
aware
know.
of.
Yep.
I am on sewer though, that's the next one.
I had that first, but you jumped all over, so go ahead.
I've heard some discussion, we might be discussing doing this project in phases, which is a kind of a cool idea. How would that work with the sewer? And when and how would the pump station happen, because that's gonna be further in. I'm sure there's a way, or maybe we're not there yet. I know you already came to the sewer department once, and I'm sure we're gonna see you again, and you're great to work with. We just need that, we don't want to overlook.
Yeah.
And go forward with a phase theory and find out it ain't gonna work with the sewer.
right. No, we're familiar with that, we've done that where even if we phase it, I mean, the stuff has to flow, right?
Right, so when does the station get built?
Exactly, so.
Because at some point you can't use
We
gravity.
might have to build all the sewer system, even though we're phasing the road.
Right,
We might have to build all the sewer system first. And we will assess that when we go before you.
Right.
You know, based on what we're planning on phasing.
right, and
Yeah, but when you phase it, the flow, you're not gonna have a great
Enough.
flow, and it's not gonna register on the meters. We had that problem already with Stonegate.
No, but what'll happen, Joe, is all the sewer will flow into one tank, and then, gravity, and then the one tank will pump up when it's full, and that's when it will register that on the meter. You understand?
Right, there is some downstream issues, I'm sure you can't wait to hear about, so,
I think that,
that
though, that
probably should happen sooner than later.
the phasing and the infrastructure that you're proposing should be something that's at least preliminarily addressed through a condition, so.
We expect to do that,
I would
yeah.
expect that a final.
Well, the whole phasing
Condition would have-
concept came after the work session, and I wanted to get
Sure.
direction from the board. Because we were not planning on phasing, we were planning on
Right.
putting the whole road together. But based on that meeting, now we will go and develop a plan for that.
Yeah, so I think it might be helpful for you guys to do a little bit of communication among yourselves to
Yeah.
kind of come up with some sort of a phasing proposal.
Yeah, I had just heard it in terms of, connections and permits per
Permits,
year,
that's it.
but I think, and it's not uncommon where now we're into that discussion to actually present a plan
Yeah.
showing it, and I think, we could definitely submit that.
Okay. Mr. Ferry, is there, you're all set?
I think that'll do,
Okay.
I get to come back again, right?
Yes. Is there anybody else that wishes to be heard in the public tonight? Any questions, comments? Anyone? No? Okay. So, I don't think there's anything left tonight to discuss, right? Okay, wrap up on the board for this case. We have, the next meeting set, they have a clear enough vision as to what to bring next to us. They have enough language to go forth and, us going forward the waivers and everything.
And keep in mind that you could table some of your waiver conversations if you
Right,
think you
you don't
might be
have to
getting
go-
further input from various boards.
That's
So,
what
I mean, I
understand.
personally have, and with Peter, we've kind of gone through knowing where the conversation may have gone tonight and sort of identify within our own minds ones that you may wanna think about tabling, and getting to at the end, you know, because there's a lengthy amount, I think there's 80 some odd, maybe you're up to 90 now, waiver requests, so. The likelihood of completing it all in one night is probably not great. But let's make some headway, let's
Yeah.
go through and let's just table, if we're not there, I wouldn't say just stop.
That was my
Let's-
opinion.
To the extent though, that we could maybe identify classes or groups of conditions, cause many of these really are administrative in nature.
Yes, I do
Saying
agree.
things like,
Okay.
you know, the planning board,
Right,
so, you know, you can charge Marguerite to kind of vet those and identify them as administrative, and then we can just say administrative.
and that's the commentary that we've looked at, and
Okay.
we've done this before with other developments. We're looking ourselves at the Pines, for instance, which you obviously are familiar with, where we kind of grouped the analysis on the waivers by the board, you know, straight waivers where you're just substituting zoning board for planning board or another board,
Okay.
waivers where you might reword it, and modify it, those types of things, so, I think that we'll probably be able to work that through. So there's definitely, you're gonna get through a large chunk of it at the first meeting. And then the ones that are more specific to the planning elements, probably all the stormwater ones, because they're meeting after your next meeting, you'll look to table and pick up at the following meeting,
Okay.
okay?
Just a procedural question.
Sure.
So, Stormwater Committee meets with the representative, so forth, so on. If there are some things in here that are listed as requesting waivers, and the developer and the Stormwater Committee and the appropriate town officials all agree, this is what can be done, does that mean that waiver goes away? Because we would advise you that we reached agreement on a particular item or section. Does
That's a
that
good
mean it
question.
goes away?
I'm not
It'll
sure.
depend on the agreement, it might mean the waiver goes away, it might mean that the wording of that particular provision would be modified.
Okay,
I
Alright.
mean, the board's done a variety of that in its prior decisions, and I would expect you would wanna do the same thing here.
okay.
So depending on what that agreement is, they may still need officially a waiver from the way it's worded, but we might come up with a modification. It might be waived knowing that a condition would be implemented instead into the
Okay.
decision, so.
Okay.
Okay,
All of
thank you.
that has been,
Got
Gotcha.
another
Sure,
question,
John.
it's about the road. You gotta decide whether it's gonna be a private road or a town road. Cause we've had a development, there was a private road, and then all the residents, when it was built out, the residents come in and wanted the town to have the responsibility of the road. So if the town's gonna have the responsibility, it's gotta be to the town standards.
Well, we,
And that's, I think that's the intent of this whole process, is to have, there may have to be some modifications, but structurally and how it's built, it's
Yeah.
to the town standards.
Because we did have one project, was private, and then the residents forced, to have it made public.
No, we're aware of that. Thank you.
There has been some waiver requests asked for with regards to some of the town standards. I think that's something that you're going to deliberate
it was
as the board
strictly
about.
just the width. We weren't allowing the binder being less, any of that. There was a concern too, also, Mr. Ferry had brought up in one of the meetings, if we did in phases, the binder code, I believe, is only good for 5 years. So we would only ask you to do so much binder and not the entire thing, because at one time you said you were gonna do the entire, and then we were like, if it's not in a base, the binder, we'd have to reevaluate the binder after 5 years. So we just wanna make sure those are things we can talk about with conditions and stuff when we get into those things, that we're all on the same page, that's all.
Alright, so that being said, I think we've all pretty much touched base on the board, how I feel going forward for the next meeting. So I think we have a couple more things on the agenda that we need to discuss, nothing involving, you guys, so I think you guys are all set. For tonight, yeah?
Nope, sorry.
No, you guys.
I was just gonna say, I was confused earlier, we've set the times, but are we gonna continue this to the 25th right now? We'll continue
We
the,
have right now.
You would, we do that already beforehand, right, so.
Why don't we maybe reiterate for people if they're, you know,
well, at this point, we're
Continuing or
closing tonight, continuing to the next hearing.
Yeah, we're not adjourning our meeting, but we are, yeah, so
Moving on to the next
we got
non-strawberry.
the non-strawberry field, yes, correct, yes.
I think the motion was already made. wasn't
Yeah,
it?
right,
So we've got March 25th is the next public hearing date, and March 27th is the site walk date.
March 26th is stormwater.
yeah, somewhere that you're
Stormwater
attending.
public
We're here all
meeting
week.
for stormwater.
Yes.
On March 26th at 1 p.m.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you guys, thank you. Alright, so,
Can I come back now?
yeah, yes, you may, Sean, you may come back now. Dad, can you just pull the chair for John, what's going on the end? What?
Sorry, Stefan.
It won't be long, maybe like 5 minutes, not even, guys.
I can just.
But yeah, we're not jumping in, it's literally gonna take 2 minutes.
That's why I started.
No, I haven't seen it in this one.
You need a minute to set John.
I'm only.
This side of it, right. Meeting control.
Minutes, yeah, so they're not in the correct format, obviously. This might be
Yes,
different.
yeah,
I got that. I
Approve them with.
Nancy, correction. Do you have formatting?
Well, formatting, also there's one, I think, in there, if you wanted to fix.
Do minutes need to be in a certain format? No. So this is fine when he has them? Yeah. So it's not worth him retyping it?
What I read the
Good,
today.
and everyone's happy to comment, you know, I'm
Sure, yeah.
looking at it more,
Yeah, I mean.
I don't know, I didn't know, I gotta ask Bishop.
Probably just throw it.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah, okay, I said when you thought you had to like change the spacing, okay.
but yeah.
Alright,
I'm happy to go.
so
And I
before,
think at the end of the day,
I will wait to approve the minutes until Jonathan's back here in the restroom.
covers every
So
concern.
Jonathan, I know you put on the agenda for our,
Right.
yeah. Yep, okay, guys, if you just, moving the discussion to the hallway, we're wrapping up.
The general permit.
Yeah, thanks Nancy, which,
Sorry.
Jonathan, I saw you provided a list of the meeting minutes, I'm sorry, the, next date, for the, rest of the year. No, I'm not gonna vote on anything, or I'm just asking more for me than for anything. This is just a list for us to know going forward what we're looking like, or if there's anything that they want, do they want us to vote right now and to have each meeting, or?
So the reason why I wanted to just quickly touch on this is because, it'll help, so so I can set deadlines for someone who wants a variance or a special permit, and I can say, here's when our meeting is gonna be, here's the deadline for when you need to have it.
I'm doing something similar in the city of Brockton, this is exactly what they do. But on here, it also says if you have it in here, when your next meeting would be next to it. So it's something to think about too. So in other words, if you have it in by March 25th or whatever the
There you
date,
go. Or you
it
can
has to
sit
be
there.
in whatever, how many days they can say, if I,
Yeah.
like I have to have something in by Thursday to be on April 12th meeting.
Yeah, so I'll say the deadline for submittals.
Correct.
Yeah, so John, we're just looking at the memo that John Gray provided of the list of our meeting dates going forward.
Yep.
It's just, he just wanted to do this so he could inform applicants of, when our next meeting would be.
I was actually gonna respond tomorrow morning, but that works for me.
Yep, and then Greg just thought the good idea of adding a little bullet point underneath each one saying to submit, this is what we need to have it in by.
For that
So,
meeting.
because you may have a resident who's just not with the process coming forward the day before thinking, can I get this in for tomorrow? Some residents might not know that we have a certain reason for why we have certain deadlines. So if you could do that, you want to add us to when we need a deadline for each thing by. But
Yeah.
I think it's great to have this posted on the website so just so
Yeah,
everyone,
so I'll
everyone
post
knows.
on the website, I'll post on the cork board outside, and
And I noticed we managed to go through all these Wednesdays and not run into a holiday.
We have one conflict and that's with
Me, yep,
her
on
on
December
the
16th.
16th. So just keep that in mind when we go
And
forward.
They let you out of the country.
And Dad,
I am, I am
well,
going.
That's
well,
if-
Dad,
That's Corona will let you go.
Oh, I am going.
well, Dad, that's a question that we have too, because we will be traveling to tentatively.
I will not be sitting near either one of you.
That's fine.
I'll be over
Hey,
there.
we're going to Italy.
Oh, jeez.
I'm going to
Hey,
Aruba.
to Northern Italy.
What month? What month?
December.
Alright.
No,
I'll be-
no, not
sure.
us. We're going a little sooner than that.
When you leaving?
June.
Alright, I'm gonna resign.
Really? Going to Italy? Oh, goodness, I thought you were kidding.
No, we actually
That's
are.
crazy. Careful, guys.
But Dad, that would not run into it
No, we'll be back before that.
if we go.
Then you got 14.
Not having a family discussion
Yeah, and
now.
then for
Why?
14 days you can't come
I
out of
think
your
I'll do
house.
it by then.
I hope so.
All right. So yeah, there's really nothing to vote on really. It's more just him just right. Just
I like
No.
this though. That's good.
yeah, I like
That
it.
helps us out a lot.
So my vote is I like it. Just kidding. So and then the last thing just to approve.
Why don't we just have a quick vote on it, I mean, unless there really is no.
I don't.
I don't think
This
there's no vote required.
Okay, nah.
Alright, never mind.
Yeah, I think what you've done there is exactly what we need. That helps you with
Streamline
scheduling.
the
Absolutely.
whole process.
Yep.
All right. The last thing is just to approve the minutes. I know it's just from this February, right? Does all minutes that we have is just from that, right?
This is, so I tried to get, I sent you guys this email, 30 minutes before this meeting tonight, so I apologize for this late.
It's-
But I just felt like, for the board at least, having the minutes from the workshop that Greg hosted would be most valuable. So, so a lot of the other meetings like this, they're all on YouTube. That meeting was not, so I prioritized that one to get the minutes out.
That's fine.
Yeah,
And
you
where
highlighted
was
everything.
where was the typo that someone
Oh, the
thought?
30, it was the 30 versus 3. But you know what? I think what he
Where
meant-
was that though?
Oh, it was
I didn't see
page
it.
2,
Oh. Every 30 houses. That's why my dad was like,
yeah.
what? Yeah. So
Yeah.
you saw that line, right, Jonathan?
Yes, I will.
Well, either Jonathan.
I heard it, yes.
But I think what he was talking about is he did say he was gonna have one. Like he says he has one for 40 houses, right?
Oh,
Or
that's
then
his
something-
other
This
project.
is different. Yeah.
Right, so was he,
He was
did he mention it and then?
What he had told us in the meeting, from what I understood was, if we were going to do irrigation on any of the properties or any of the type of homes,
You would have a separate well, right?
he was gonna do for every 3 properties, or 4, up to 5, he'd be drawing off a single well. Now, my question at hand was so if that well's here, is the HOA gonna make the power?
Yeah.
I don't know these things.
Right.
These are something that we were gonna discuss later on, but
Right.
then what he has, a community well for every 30 houses.
Right.
Now, that was another thing he mentioned, if you heard, you can dig down and go deeper and get 50 gallons per minute. Now, we're in that value.
I'll just remind the board that we don't need to deliberate on anything here, so if there's a typo, I'll fix it, and.
Yeah, it's pretty much, I'm just explaining to them what I think was the difference there, that's all.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it was really a typo, cause I think he probably was mentioning different scenarios.
That's right, 'cause we heard
Yeah.
3 to 4, and then someone thought he said 30, and then we saw the 30 and thought,
Right.
is that wrong? But it's not.
Well, I got, one of the reasons why I was saying about the well for irrigation, I love the idea he wants to irrigate the property, and that's great. But the concern I do have is that, if you have, you're sharing a well for irrigation in this development here, is this gonna be its own HOA, or is this gonna be an HOA for individuals, it's gonna be one large HOA?
I think it's gonna be one large.
Well,
so
I don't
that-
know that for
We
sure.
don't know, yes, and
I
propose
think
something different.
he might have said the condos could be their own. I'm not saying he
I
is what he
did remember
said,
him saying that.
but I think he
yeah,
might have said that.
Yes.
There's
So-
nothing
You're all set,
under,
John.
nothing in the waivers.
Yeah, exactly, so these
No.
are,
So
there's just a few things that
just
concern
leave
Powell.
leave them the way it is.
Yes.
The minutes you mean? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so then that could be.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
And Greg, before you do that, you also had mentioned the number of housing permits per year. I
Yeah,
think that's
I-
fine the way it is in the minutes.
He's got, yeah, cause that's what,
he said at the
that's what
meeting.
he said.
Okay.
But I remember prior to the meeting that we had, when it was over at the school, he was talking 10 to 15 permits a year.
Okay.
Alright, so this is why I gotta, when it's here, cause he did say, the building inspector said he would like to see that too, also a condition, how many permits he could pull per year. So we based it on a 5-year build, how many houses, that's what we came out with. So that's
Right,
how we
okay,
did it.
cool.
So the minutes are good to go.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I hear a motion to accept. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Alright, there's nothing else to discuss. We don't have anything regarding the next regular meeting.
Are we looking at any bills, or can we ask a question about the bill or not right now?
If you have a question about
Yeah, I do have
it,
a question.
you have a question about a
The
bill,
question
sure.
about the bill is, I saw the bill we had for the consultant that night.
Yeah.
When we came. Was I right for $1,700? $1,750, because I know he was here for an hour and a half.
That
He
he
was
was
here
here longer than
for more than that. He was like 6 hours, so that includes his travel time. That includes the general workshop that we had.
That includes the conference call, right? We had a
The
conference
conference call that included also at this meeting, he sat in on the whole meeting for the Strawberry Fields.
Not just that first preliminary meeting.
He was not here he was here
Okay,
for
because
more.
I wasn't aware of that, and I was kind of surprised when I saw that.
Yeah.
Because I thought our conversation was to determine whether we wanted him or not.
But we, right, and that's,
Not to know that he was gonna automatically bill us.
right,
time
but,
served.
and then that's one thing too that I remember discussing that night too, was that like, we still have to pay him, because remember after that meeting I asked you, like, have you got a bill from him yet? Whether we say yes or no to him, we have to pay him for the time and work he's put in so far, that wasn't free. So I knew we had a bill coming forward because
I didn't know if we had a contractual agreement.
No,
prior to
no,
it.
we have, no, but I mean, obviously he, expended services that we have to now compensate for, but.
Well, I don't know if I would agree with that, because a lot of times when somebody is looking to retain you or looking to give you information, they will present you with a contract, this is what I'm charging for. We didn't receive that.
Well, he was,
I'm not saying he didn't do any work. don't
Oh, no,
misunderstand.
I know that, yeah, I mean,
But I haven't, that's.
So should I ask Mallory?
I would say before we, put a pen and paper on that one. I mean, we have not approved anything officially, so I mean,
I just wanted to,
there's nothing wrong with reaching out to Mallory and seeing if she's privy to any information that I don't know regarding that.
Hey, Greg, as far as water, there's plenty of water. Somerset has got excess water, and we have a connection with Somerset.
I didn't say that.
No, but, the water
He
department
said the
wants.
Alright, so
Water
Jonathan,
department wants to build
we'll
another
touch base on that one whenever you get your
yeah,
freedom.
I'm just raising the question.
No, that's
because
fine.
Normally, there's a contract or fee-for-service contract.
Right, no, I can tell you that the no contract has been signed, I do know
So
that.
that's, if he was coming, looking to see if we needed it, which was my understanding,
My
Right.
dog just
that
has
he
to
would
be
be here
washed
to tell us what
every
he
day.
could provide.
Oh my god, my mail
Where did
is
6
so
hours or 7 hours?
My
of
female's
time
like, no,
go
I'm
into
not gonna
that?
get to it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
on
to look into it.
Yeah, we'll come to that, yeah.
And then the only other question I had
I
was
left him in
with
the
regards to
sink to
earlier when
wash
I
his
first
feet.
came in, but you and Marguerite and I can have a conversation.
Okay. So, is there any more discussion for tonight, guys? Michelle? Sorry, if there's no more public input, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Do I hear a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
You all thought I was gonna say that, didn't you?